Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. Good night. Thank you for being here. My name is Angel Ramirez. We're going to be translating for you the daily conference of Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador so that we can continue and provide you with the best information possible. Here today, we're going to skip a little bit of the beginning and we're going to go right through the most important information of the health and medical personnel that is being trained to provide better medical assistance for the country. As well, after that, we're going to be talking about and we're going to be listening to the president talk about the new business partner, Tesla, the chat that he had yesterday with Elon Musk, so that you guys could be aware of what's going on. Thank you very much for being here. Starting now. Thank you, Mr. President. With your permission, good morning, Dr. Alcocer, Dr. Lopez Gatel, and good morning to everybody. To inform about the advancements of the program IMSS Bienestar, the institution of the fourth transformation for the medical attention that don't count with Social Security. We're going to be talking about one of the most complex subjects of this inherence of the neoliberal model that had to do with the medical and lady medical assistants and specialists. This advances in terms of infrastructure, acquisition of equipment, and incrementing of the supply of medication. But the formation of specialty medics takes a while, turns into a type of puzzle that needs to be integrated in between other strategic situations. That's why today we present a few of them and their advancements. Tiene unas gráficas. It has some graphics on there. Because we want to show how is it from 2019 it was incremented the number of resident medical personnel by part of the institution and the medical realm. This, of course, is formed half of medics, specialists of the country. Regardless, before, less were formed as necessities by what was needed. This was changed, and this is how now we have more income as to medical personnel since 2023. This first graph shows you the number of specialty medics that come in year by year. In 2019, there was 3,960. In 2020, 4,304. 2021, 4,586. And then we had 4,896 in 22. And with the first increments in the number of grants that are given to doctors, new doctors, 5,600. These new medical assistants that are now graduated and these scholarships, of course, the ones that we're going to be working on and try to offer this working option so they can keep working, but with better conditions, better opportunities that we want to have with them. But as well has to do with how this has been incrementing as to the location. This means that the IMSS is offering more locations, and there's been an investment of 400 million pesos, and of resting areas, and we advanced from 200 to 400 locations of formation in all specialties. With this increment, we have a possibility we can grab more specialty doctors. If we can see the next slide, this talks about of a formation of the residency in medicals that in the last year, especially specialists like gynecology, pediatrics, medicine, internal medicine, surgery, anesthesia, family medical attention, and urgencies, the last part of their formation is to go for 6 months or 4 months, depending on the specialty, to a rotation, camp rotation. These rotations include this is for 2,097 medics of the specialties that I just mentioned, 2,057, and before we can be, whether it's in units and installations informed by the hospitals in the Bienestar realm. Now we're going to be 222 hospitals of the hospitals that before belonged to secretaries of health of the governments of the states and that are now being transferred in the IMSS Bienestar. And so a lot of these hospitals never have had any residents there. They've never had in rotation on the field of last year, of latest year. And this we're going to be starting to do in Nayarit, in the hospitals that are far away in the woods. These hospitals are rural areas, of course, mountain areas, where there's important attention of indigenous people. Like these hospitals, many of them that were constructed had a great number of beds, but not enough that the norm 01 of education and health had been modified already, by the way. They never had spaces to receive these residents. And so, at this moment, all those hospitals that don't include residencies have now a backup of 4,400 pesos a month, so they can cover for lodging or food. With this starting tomorrow, 4,800 pesos per month will be a boost for these locations that have specialty medics. And the next one has to do with the interns, the 5,600 that just integrated themselves as it occurs year by year. This IMSS makes this fair for recruiting and grab these medical personnel, and as well the vacancies that are being having in the IMSS Bienestar, the ones with the objective so they can opt for one or another location for the IMSS Bienestar, meaning one round or shift in the IMSS and another one in hospitals where there's a coincidence of both institutions, but as well to be able to offer them, if there's no interest to take an ordinary position, IMSS Bienestar could also offer them the health ones. On that sense, we will be starting tomorrow with a lot of the doctors that are with scholarships, and then specialty it opens up until the 9th of March. Next one is one element that is really important, is that we're going to be having compensations in those places where there was an absence of specialty doctors, of zero coverture in this is for a scholarship of 9,000 pesos a month, and that have
esa cobertura, y también para la Ciudad de México,
partial
Guadalajara y Monterrey es un incremento de casi 2,000 pesos
coverage,
de apoyo para médicos especialistas.
and we
Al
can
mismo
also have
tiempo, se
enough
van a ofertar las
locations
plazas
for
de
specialty
el IMSS Bienestar
doctors
para
as
tener
well,
esta
the
posibilidad
locations,
de
so that we
doble
can
plaza, una
have
de medicina
a
ordinario, una de IMSS Bienestar. Y
coverage for the
además,
EAMS Bienestar
estamos
and one
abriendo una
for the
convocatoria
EAMS.
para
We
que
are
puedan
also invoking
participarnos en,
some
sobre todo de las esposas, esposos,
members
las
of the
parejas de las
doctors,
médicas y los
like the
médicos
co-workers
especialistas
and
que tienen alguna
partners of
profesión
the
y que
doctors that
exista
have a
alguna
profession, that
vacante,
there's a
ya sea en el Seguro
vacancy,
Social o en
whether
el
it's
IMSS
in
Bienestar, o
EAMS,
incluso en algunos estados se está
in the
trabajando con
social
los
security
gobiernos
realm, or
estatales
even
para
in working
vacantes
with
de
the
los
states
propios
for
gobiernos
vacancies
estatales
for the
para
own state
ofertarlas a las
governments to
parejas
offer
y
them
así
to their
pues apoyar aún
partners
más
and even
este
help more in
ingreso
that
familiar
way
que con
the
sus
income
incrementos
for the
evitar la
family
desintegración
and help for the
de
disintegration
las
of
familias o las
the
parejas a la
families
hora de ofertar
or
o de
the
tomar
partners to offer
una
or in
plaza
a time to take
que esté vacante. Entonces,
a
eso es
location
una
or
parte. La
a
siguiente
job
tiene que ver con
that is
los
vacant. This
prospectos que se
second part
tienen
has to do with the
ya
prospects that we have
registrados con la
already
documentación
registered with the
completa de médicos
documentation completed
especialistas
of specialty
de otras
medics
partes del
of
mundo.
other places
Esto
of
es
the
muy
world.
importante, es
This
la
is really
primera vez
important
que se
because
hace
it's the
así.
first time that we do it
Se
like
hizo la
this.
convocatoria
The
internacional de quienes estaban interesados y que tomaron alguna opción de las plazas. Se están terminando la documentación, sobre todo en términos migratorios, y vamos a tener estos 156
I'm
médicos y
sorry, we're going to
médicas
have
de
these
estas especialidades que
156
tanta
medics
falta nos hacen. Por
of these
ejemplo,
specialties,
traumatología y ortopedia,
for
que es en la que
example,
hubo más, junto con
traumatology and
anestesia, cirugía
orthopedics,
general, gineco y
surgical,
obstetricia, pediatría, medicina interna y
pediatrics,
también médicas y
internal
médicos de
medicine,
radiodiagnóstico.
medics,
Entonces,
and
con esto también
medics,
vamos a
women
seguir
and men
apoyando,
that are
insisto,
also
sobre
specialists in
todo en
general
aquellos
medics.
lugares en
And
donde
they're
hay
going
una
to be
plaza
assisting
que
in
año
all
con
those
año
places
salen
where
a
there are
ofertarse y que
locations
nadie
that
toma.
are offered
No es, son principalmente en
and
lugares
that nobody takes,
apartados,
mainly in
donde hay
locations
mucha
where there
necesidad
are far
y
away
también
hospitals where there's a
mucha
lot of necessity
vocación
and
de
there's
estos
a lot
médicos
of
que acuden
need of
a
these
estos lugares.
doctors that
La
need to be
siguiente, por
there.
favor.
The next one,
Bueno, estos son los avances
these
de
are
los
the
estados.
advances
Hoy
of the
quisiera
states. Today,
enfocarme
I
en
want
esta
to
parte
base
que
myself
tiene que
on
ver con cómo se ha
this middle
incrementado
part
ya
here
los
and how
servicios
these services
que
have
se realizan
incremented
en los
that are
estados, en
being
las
accomplished
unidades
in the states in the
que son
units
operadas por el IMSS
that are
Bienestar, en
operated by
particular
the
en
EAMS
los
Bienestar, in
hospitales. Y
particular in
tiene
the
que ver
hospitals.
con las
And this has to
consultas,
do with
las
the
cirugías y
consultations, the
también los
surgeries,
niveles de abasto
and the levels
de
of
medicamentos. Como vemos
supply
aquí, por
of
ejemplo, en Nayarit, en
medication.
lo que va del año, se
What
han
we can see
realizado
here in
35,000
Nayarit, there's been
consultas tanto de especialidad como de medicina familiar,
35,833,
2,436 cirugías, y
2,436
ya tenemos un
surgeries,
nivel de abasto de
and we
medicamentos
have a
del
supply level of
99%.
99%.
En la siguiente tenemos
On the next
Tlaxcala,
one, we
lo
have
mismo, tenemos
Tlaxcala, the
un muy
same.
buen
We
nivel
have
ya
a good level now
de
of
servicios, con
service with
21,423
21,423
consultas, 14,000 de especialidad, 7,000 de medicina familiar,
consultations,
1,988 cirugías y 96%
almost
es lo que nos
2,000
registra
surgeries, and
el nivel de
96% at
surtimiento. En todos los casos
supply of
es,
medication. In
hay
all cases,
incrementos en el
there are
número de
increments in the
servicios que
number
se
of
están
services that are
ya
being
realizando con todas
undertaken
las acciones
and being
que se
completed and
han detallado
realized
aquí
with all
semana a
the
semana. La
compliance that
siguiente es
we've been
Colima, donde tenemos
dealing with. The next
21,000
one is
consultas
Colima, where
realizadas en
we
lo que
have
va del año, 17,000
21 over
consultas de
21,000
especialidad,
consultations,
3,981 de
17
medicina
over
familiar,
almost 18,000 of
1,263
specialties
cirugías y
through almost
94%
4,000 of
es
medical
lo que tenemos
general
reportado de
family
recetas
doctor
surtidas. Ya no solamente el
and
abasto de lo que hay en las farmacias o en
1,200
los almacenes, sino cuántas recetas se
surgeries
surtieron
and
de manera
94%
completa. La siguiente
supply of
es Baja California
medication. The
Sur
next
con
one is Baja California
13,921
Sur
consultas,
with
11,000 de
3,000
especialidad, 2,176
consultations
de medicina familiar, 867 cirugías y tenemos un nivel de abasto del 99%. En Baja California Sur fue todo un reto por las distancias,
in
pero se ha
vacation
logrado
it was
trabajar muy
a
bien,
great
ampliando almacenes
deal, but
y
it's been
también
being
adquiriendo
amplified
unidades para
to where
los
the
traslados, sobre
units of
todo a las
the
unidades más apartadas. En
movement
la
to the
siguiente vemos
different
a Sonora, que
locations,
tiene
now
lo
we're
que va
able
del
to
año
get there. What we have now is Sonora when it
44,384
comes to
consultas, entre
over
consultas de especialidad, que son la
44,000 of
mayoría,
consultation
36,306, 8,000
and
de medicina
specialties
familiar,
over
3,011 cirugías y
36,000,
un nivel de abasto de surtimiento de recetas del 98%.
family medicine
La
over
siguiente, Sinaloa,
8,000,
con 45,000
surgeries over
consultas,
3,000,
38,000 de especialidad,
98%
12,000 de medicina
supply of
familiar,
medication.
2,399 cirugías y un 96% de
And
recetas
there's a
surtidas.
96 as
La
well
siguiente es, estamos ahí, Campeche,
in
que tenemos
Campeche.
10.459 consultas,
And then we got
5.483 son de especialidad, 4.976 de medicina
Campeche
familiar.
at
Como vemos,
Family
Campeche, que
Medicine.
es de
As
los
we can see,
estados
Campeche is one of
más
the
recientes que el resto. Tenemos
states that
cobertura
is
todavía
most
del
recent. We
52%
still
de
have
médicos
coverage of
especialistas. Esto tendrá que
52%
verse de manera
of
muy
specialty
distinta
medics. This has
ahora
to
que
be
hagamos
viewed in a different
tanto la
way
parte del
now that we
reclutamiento que
can
empieza
do the
mañana y que
recruitment that
está
starts
enfocado
tomorrow
en
and that is
estados como
focused
Campeche,
on the
en
states of
donde tienen muy
Campeche,
baja cobertura
where
de
there's
médicos
very low
especialistas,
coverage
y
of
eso va a
specialty
impactar de
doctors, and
inmediato
that will
pues en
impact
el número de
right away
consultas
in the
o de
numbers of
cirugías que se hacen
consultations and
en
surgeries
esa
that are done
área.
in that
La
area.
siguiente, lo mismo pasa en
The
Guerrero,
next one
tenemos
happens in
65%
Guerrero
cobertura de
with the
médicos
66%
especialistas
of
y aún
coverture.
así hemos
And
logrado hacer
even so,
28.396
we've been able to
consultas,
do
11.000
over
de especialidad,
28,000
16.000 de medicina familiar y
consultations
1.618 cirugías, con un
with
86%
an
es el reporte de recetas
86%
surtidas en el
of
estado de Guerrero.
the
La siguiente es
medication
Veracruz.
supply.
Tenemos
The
un
next one is
53%
Veracruz.
de
We have a
cobertura de
53%
médicos
of
especialistas. En las
specialty
consultas,
doctors. In the
15.099
consultations, over
consultas,
15,000.
9.920 de
We
especialidad,
have just
5.179
under
de
10,000
medicina familiar. Aquí es
specialty
importante destacar que la consulta
consultations,
de primer nivel de atención
regular family doctors
generalmente se
over
realiza por
5,000,
médicos
and this
generales. Esa
generally
no
is
la estamos
realized by
reportando acá,
general
se
medics.
sigue
We're
haciendo,
not reporting
pero
that one, but
queremos
it's still being done,
enfocarnos mucho
and we
a
want to
consultas de
focus
especialidad,
ourselves to
incluida la
specialty
consulta del
consultations,
médico
including
familiar, que es
the
una
consultations
especialidad
of
fundamental
medical,
en la historia del
family
Seguro
medical,
Social
which
y de
is
otras
fundamental
instituciones de seguridad
in the
social.
Social
En ese
Security.
sentido, también
In this
mientras
sense,
vayamos
it's
incrementando la
as long as
cobertura de
we are
especialistas,
incrementing
se
the
va a
coverage
incrementar
of
también el
specialty,
número de
we are
consultas de
incrementing the
especialidad. La
number of
siguiente,
specialties as
tenemos
well.
Michoacán,
Next
en
one
los
is
estados en los que
Michoacán
estamos
in the
este
states
año.
where
Seguimos en las
we are
capacitaciones, tanto
working
en
in
primer
the
como en segundo nivel de
training as
atención.
first and second
Tenemos un reporte
levels.
del
We have a
96% de abasto
96%
y
of the
acciones de conservación,
supply
lo hemos
ready for
conversado,
medication,
impermeabilizaciones,
and we have a lot of
remodelación y
specialties:
rehabilitación de
remodelation,
baños, de pisos, de
remodeling,
plafones, también
restrooms,
de
all types
quirófanos, de
of
salas de
coverage
espera.
for
En
renovation
22
of
de
the
los 22
places.
hospitales hemos
On
hecho la
all
compra
22
de
hospitals in
304
that
millones
region
de
of
equipo por
Michoacán, we have
53.4
made
millones de
purchases
pesos
of
que ya están
53.4
entregados
million
todos en
pesos
el
that
segundo nivel de
of
atención. Y finalmente
equipment
tenemos
in the
Morelos,
second level of
donde
attention.
tenemos un
And
abasto
finally,
de
we have
medicamentos
Morelos
del
of
88%
88%
y
of
también en
supply and
acciones de conservación en
medication.
4 de
In
los 9
conservation
hospitales. Nos
actions in
falta
4 of
aún
the 9
endosar
hospitals.
estos 9
We still need
hospitales
to go
en el estado de
into
Morelos
5 of these
que iniciaron,
Morelos
que van a iniciar
hospitals
esta semana, y
that will be
en
starting
esos 4 que ya
this
tenemos en
week. And all
tensión
these fours that
adquirimos
we
78
have,
bienes
we
por
acquired 78
10.4
goods
millones de pesos
for
que ya fueron
$10.4
entregados
million
en todos
of
estos
equipment that
4
has been turned into these 4
hospitales. Sería
hospitals.
todo por mi cuenta, señor presidente.
That
Muchas
would be
gracias.
all on my part, Mr. President. All right. We'll continue. Thank you all for being here. Well, it's really important as a synthesis, as a
recordar que este es nuestro plan de salud prioritario,
that this is our
el que podamos
summary.
atender a la población.
This is our plan to be able to take care of the
social,
population that is no
pobres.
Social Security
Vamos a
availability and that are the most poor,
todos los centros de salud,
and will be that in all the health centers, hospitals, and even in the farthest of communities, that the guarantee to health is guaranteed, is there. That there's medics, that there's specialists, medication, of course,
que estén en buen estado las instalaciones,
that they're in good health, and the installations are nice and clean and free. That there's no charge as it's being done all around.
Ya se están retirando las cajas registradoras.
These registry
los hospitales.
Boxes with money are being removed, and this, of course, is really important. I reaffirm the compromise that this year we're going to be having conclude this system of health, universal health,
eficaz y gratuito.
Free and
o sea que sigue en pie lo de Dinamarca.
What we're doing in Dinamarca is still working, and that it is
vayan tomando nota.
So that our adversaries are taking notes.
Vamos a estar informando.
And every 15 days we're going to be informing about the advancements This is because they have a good health system.
En Dinamarca está establecido lo que se conoce como estado de bienestar.
And then in Denmark, they call it bienestar, is what we're doing. And we're trying to leave established in Mexico. In Denmark, for example, when
65 años, ya se tiene una pensión.
When it comes to 65 years old, there's already a pension. In Denmark, when
Todo el sistema de salud es gratuito.
the whole health system is free,
En Dinamarca, la educación es pública y es gratuita.
education is public and free,
Becas a estudiantes.
and there's scholarships to students.
Es garantizarle al ser humano
It's to guarantee
desde la cuna hasta la tumba.
the protection
Esa es
of
la
citizens
responsabilidad del Estado.
from the cradle to the tomb, kind of thing. That's the
En
responsibility
Dinamarca,
of the
otros
states.
países nórdicos,
In Denmark and
el
other
Estado no
Nordic
incumple
countries,
su responsabilidad
the state
social.
does not
Es lo
forget
opuesto
their social responsibility. It's totally against
el
liberalism,
objetivo
where the
es la
objective
privatización.
is the privatization
Que
of
estudie, que se
everything,
cure,
to study that they
que
get
sobreviva.
health, that they survive,
El que tenga
the
dinero
fact that
para
whomever
pagar
has
una
money
colegiatura, para
to be
pagar
able to pay scholarships,
para pagar
student grants,
una
medication,
operación o
an
intervención
operation or
médica.
medical interventions,
O el que ahorre
or the one that is saving up and can have a
eh,
healthy
seguro.
retirement, basically, a secure one.
Entonces,
And so,
por eso hablamos del
that is
estado
why we're speaking
de
about
bienestar. Y
the
hacia allá vamos.
state of
Ya,
health.
por ejemplo, en México, todos
And
los
we're on our
adultos
way
mayores
now. All the adults
tienen su pensión
have their
y
pension.
vamos a irle incrementando.
And we're going to be incrementing that slowly.
La hemos ido incrementando. En lo que va del gobierno ha aumentado como 4 veces.
When it comes to the government, it's incremented like 4 times.
Ya es de todos,
And it's universal, it's for everybody.
de adultos mayores.
11 million of elderly. In January, the last month, it incremented 25%, and next year will be another 25%. This, of course, is what is hated by the conservatives.
Y también,
And also,
son 11 millones de becas.
there's 11 million scholarships
Nunca
for students. Never
se hubiera entregado esta cantidad. Y
has
tenemos
this been
que
turned
ser
in
justos,
so much, and it really makes me happy
porque
because
este programa ya está dando frutos.
this system is already giving
Estamos en el
fruit
nivel
on this,
de deserción, de abandono de la escuela. En el nivel medio,
and
superior
in the
de
middle
secundaria,
ways, like in the middle school
más
and high
bajo
school,
que se haya registrado en la historia.
it's the
Es decir,
lowest
no
registry,
están abandonando
meaning
la escuela los jóvenes.
of
Y es
abandonment.
la edad
Young people are not abandoning,
más
and it's the time there that is most important and more risky to lose students,
todos los estudiantes
because
de
all
nivel
the
medio superior tienen su
students of high school have their
Esto es
scholarship.
estado de bienestar. Lo de la marcha del domingo,
And about Sunday's march, who was it?
los que vinieron a marchar
Who came over to march?
o los dirigentes,
The directives
los
there,
promotores,
the
los
promoters,
que se oponen a esta política.
the ones that are against this
Debe
policy.
saberse,
It has to be known that
presenté la
when I
iniciativa
presented the initiative
para que la pensión a los adultos mayores
so
se
that
convirtiera
adult pensions
un
can
derecho
turn into a
y que
right,
quien esté en la presidencia
and who's ever in the
se
presidency
tenga que garantizar
has to
esta pensión a
guarantee
los
this
adultos
pension
mayores.
to the elderly.
Los del PAN votaron en contra.
The ones from El PAN, they voted against it.
Porque esa es su mentalidad, pues son muy
Because that's their
conservadores
mentality.
y muy hipócritas.
They're really conservative. They try to conserve their money.
Muy
They're very
hipócritas.
hypocritical.
Entonces, esas
And so that
son las cosas que nos
is
hacen
one of the things that make us different.
qué bueno,
It's really good that
porque antes se simulaba mucho.
this is happening, because before this was a lot of simulation. There's a lot of fake politicians,
Porque el robalo es el que
because the one that you steal from
se maneja en dos aguas,
is that has been managed in two different ways.
en aguas saladas y
And salty water per se, and sweet
en los
water
ríos,
in the rivers
en el mar.
and in the sea.
Y aquí ya no. Hay política
Not here.
robalera.
There's no thievery now.
Aquí es de definición.
This is about
O
definition.
con el pueblo
Now, you go with the people
o la
or
oligarquía.
the oligarchies.
Nada más que los conservadores
Only
dicen
that the conservatives say,
como un
like a
político de
politician
la picaresca política mexicana.
of the political way, Mexican political ways, that used to say,
¿Estás conmigo
are you with
o
me
estás sinmigo?
or without me?
Es que dicen que somos dictadores.
They say that we're dictators.
Por eso
And that's why
está como aprovecho para
it's
contestar
like I take advantage to answer to the Department of the State
del gobierno de Estados Unidos
of the U.S. government
que
that, as it is
la mala costumbre
a bad habit,
siempre
there's
se
always
inmiscuyen en
they're
asuntos que no
getting
les
into situations that are not theirs.
muy contrario a lo que piensa el
Very
presidente Biden,
contrary to what Biden thinks.
que siempre habla
He's always talking
de
about
igualdad,
equality,
textualmente de un pie de igualdad. Pero, como dice la canción,
textually speaking,
eh,
but as the song says,
pesa más o se impone más la costumbre,
the
la mala
customs,
costumbre,
the bad customs,
en este caso
impose even more.
amor
In this
o el
case,
respeto.
as love or respect is stronger.
Todavía
As
no
well,
abandonan
they're not
la política
abandoning
de hace
their
2 siglos,
politics
la
from
política de Monroe,
2 decades,
de
centuries,
sentirse
those Monroe types,
el gobierno del mundo.
to feel like they're the owners of the world.
¿Qué le digo con todo respeto?
What do I say with all due
Señor
respect
Blinken, del Departamento
to
de
Mr.
Estado,
Blinken from the
que hay más democracia
Department of State,
actualmente en
State
México
Department, that there's more democracy now in
que en
Mexico
Estados Unidos.
than in the U.S.
Y que
And that
en vez de estarse
instead of
metiendo,
in-
actuando de manera
involving
injerencista
themselves and trying to act
en nuestros asuntos,
as inheritance to get into our business,
si quieren
that they
seguir con la
want to
misma
continue with the same
política, pues que se
policy,
ocupen
then to
de lo
worry
que está
about
pasando,
of what's
en
happening
Perú,
in Peru,
donde ahí la embajadora de Estados
where the
Unidos es la
ambassador of
asesora
the U.S. is the counselor
de los golpistas
of these people
que
that
pisotearon
took over and did this coup
las libertades y la
and
democracia
stepped
en
on the
ese país,
democracy and liberties of that country,
destituyendo injustamente al presidente
and
y
justly
encarcelándolo,
taking out and jailing the president,
y que le hagan caso al presidente Biden.
and to listen to Biden.
Pero esto
But this, of
no es
course,
nada más el Departamento de Estado,
is not only the Department of State,
es la naturaleza,
it's nature,
o cuando menos
or at least
la costumbre
the custom
que viene
that
de
comes
siglos
from centuries
en el gobierno de Estados Unidos y en
in
las
the
élites
U.S.
de Estados
government
Unidos.
and in the elites of the U.S.
Cuando hablo
government,
de que tenemos más democracia nosotros que ellos,
and that at least we have more
es
democracy
porque
from
aquí
them,
gobierna el pueblo,
means is that the only difference is the
allá
people govern
la
here.
oligarquía.
Over there, the oligarchies rule.
Nada más ayer, por ejemplo,
Just yesterday, for example,
el periódico posiblemente más
newspaper,
influyente
possibly the
en
most
términos económicos
influential
y financieros en el mundo,
in financial and economic business
el Wall
in the
Street Journal.
world, the Wall Street Journal,
8 columnas y fotografías
8 columns and photography and pictures
para la marcha
for the
de los
march
corruptos.
of the corrupts.
Porque
Because, of
ese
course,
periódico y
this
otros
newspaper
en Estados
and
Unidos
others in the U.S.
protegen
protect
a las mafias de poder económico
these economical mafia
en el mundo.
in the world.
Está mejor el Reforma.
It's better, Reforma is better.
Bueno, pues ya
Well, okay.
aclaramos. Vámonos,
We'll clear that up.
vámonos por la
Let's
lista. Porque si no
continue.
ya-
Let's do by the list.
Adelante.
Okay, go ahead.
Ya. Vamos a responder eso. Ya es
All
una
right,
pregunta
let's answer that real
colectiva,
quick.
pues,
Collective
se acepta.
question, so it's
En la
accepted.
democracia la mayoría manda.
Democracy, the majority wins.
Sí me gustaría preguntarle
I would
sobre
like to
Sí,
ask
van
you
bien,
about Tesla.
las cosas.
Things are going good.
Platicamos
We've spoke
ayer con el señor Elon
with
Musk
Mr. Elon
director
Musk yesterday, the
de
director
Tesla.
Tesla,
Eh,
and
hay ya un entendimiento.
there are understandings now.
Sí van
They're going
a
to
dedicar la inversión a
dedicate
México
the investment in Mexico,
Y se va
and
a establecer la planta
will be establishing the
en Monterrey
plants in Monterrey,
con
with, of course,
una serie de
a
compromisos
series of
para
compromises
enfrentar el problema
to confront the situation
de la escasez de agua.
of the
Ellos van a ayudar.
lack of water. They're going to be helping us in that
plantas
sense.
remotas.
No
With
quiero
remote plants, I don't want to
ampliar más la información porque
open more of the information because,
creo que
sorry about that.
mañana
I think tomorrow
se va a dar a conocer
it's going to be known
este anuncio
about this
a
announcement
detalle
on
por
detail
parte de la empresa
by part of the company.
Tesla y
Tesla will
además,
be informing that, and of course,
se van a dar a conocer algunos
there are
compromisos
going to
y la
be
semana que viene
turning
otros
some compromises, and
compromisos.
next week
Informo
another
al pueblo de
compromises.
México que
I informed
hablé
the people of
con
Mexico that I
el señor
spoke
Elon Musk
to Elon Musk
en 2 ocasiones
in 2 occasions
por videoconferencia.
by video conferences on Friday,
Por por la noche
Friday nights
desde Chetumal
from Chetumal,
y ayer
and
por
yesterday
la mañana.
in the morning.
Y él fue muy receptivo,
He was really receptive to what we had to say,
comprendiendo nuestras preocupaciones
understanding our
y
worries
aceptando
and accepting
nuestras propuestas
our proposals
que se van a ir dando
that are going to
a
be
conocer
given out
a
to be
partir de
known
mañana.
starting tomorrow.
Esto va a significar una inversión
This, of course, this
considerable
will mean a
y
considerable
muchos empleos.
investments
Mañana se va a
and a
informar
lot of employments. Tomorrow,
Este-
we will be informing
en lo específico.
specifically.
Quiero, pues agradecer al señor
I want to
Elon Musk,
thank Mr.
que fue
Elon
muy
Musk
respetuoso, atento,
that he was really attentive and respectful
y entendió
and understanding
de la importancia
of the
que
importance
tiene
that
atender
it means to
problema de
tend
escasez
the
de
problem
agua.
of the lack of water.
Hay un primer compromiso que es
There's a very first
el
compromise
de el uso en todo el
of the
proceso
use in the entire process
de fabricación
of
de
fabrication
automóviles
of
eléctricos,
automobiles, electrical automobiles,
la utilización de agua
utilization of
reciclada
water, recycled water,
y de tratamiento del agua,
and
incluso
treatment of the
hasta
water,
para la
including
pintura de
for
los
even the
automóviles.
paint of the
Pero eso es lo que tiene que
automobiles.
ver con
But this has to do
la
with
planta
the plants.
como
As
una inversión de esta magnitud
an investment of this magnitude, of course, implies and induces
a que se incremente
for incrementation
la
of
población
the population.
para tener una idea.
So you can have an idea, more or
En los
less,
últimos
in the last 10 years,
en los censos de
on the
2010 y
census
2020,
of
el crecimiento
2010 and
poblacional
2020, the
de la
growth
zona
of
metropolitana
population in the metropolitan area
de Monterrey
of Monterrey
fue de 23%.
was of 23%.
Estamos hablando de
We're talking
un
about
promedio anual
a average
de
of
2.3%
annual
de
average
incremento
of,
poblacional. Y la media nacional
and the
es
mid
de 1.2.
national is
O sea,
1.2,
se trae
but
un
we have a
crecimiento del doble
2.5. It's a
de la media nacional.
almost double
Entonces,
increment
eso
from
significa
the
más
average.
consumo de agua
So that means a lot more consumption of
para
water
la población.
for the people.
Hemos estado ayudando al gobierno del
We've been
Estado
helping the people of the governments
resolver el problema del déficit de agua para consumo
for the deficit of
humano, que es
consumption of water,
lo prioritario,
which is
lo más
priority.
importante. Y se está invirtiendo en la presa
And we're
Libertad
investing on the Liberty
y
Dam
en la construcción del
and in the
acueducto
construction of the
El Cuchillo
aqueduct, El Cuchillo Dos.
Y esto va
And this, of
a
course,
resolver el problema
will resolve the
de
problem
corto plazo.
in the short term.
Y esto es lo que se expuso
And this is what is
al
being exposed
señor
to the
Elon
owner
Musk.
of Tesla,
Y por
Elon
eso
Musk.
llegamos a acuerdos
And so we came to an agreement
para pensar
to think
en el mediano, en el largo
in
plazo
mid
sobre
and
el
long
abasto
term
de agua.
about the
Ya no
supply
vamos
of
a estar
water.
nosotros en el gobierno, pero
We're
tenemos
not going
que
to be in the
actuar
government, but we need
de
to
manera
act
responsable.
in a
Entonces son
responsible
buenas
way.
noticias.
So these are good news.
Sí, viene la empresa Tesla
Yes, this
completa.
company, Tesla, comes in, the whole thing.
Quedó pendiente
There was some
lo
things
de las
pending
baterías.
on the batteries.
pero toda la planta automotriz
But the whole plant, the automotive plant, from what I
muy
understand,
grande,
it's going to be
pero
really
ya
big.
también no quiero,
But as
no
well,
me
I
pidan
don't want to. Please don't ask
más
me more
porque
information because
voy a incumplir el
where
compromiso.
I'm not going to
No hice ese compromiso,
comply
pero
with the
creo que
compromise. Well, I
debemos
didn't
de
do that
actuar
compromise, but I think we should
con
act
prudencia
with prudence
y
and
que sean los directivos de
that
la
it's the
empresa
directives of the
los
company
que hagan el
that
anuncio
do the
y desde
announcements.
luego
And of course,
va a estar invitado el gobernador
the governor is going to be
de Nuevo
invited
León
of Nuevo León.
y van a estar funcionarios federales, pero
There's going to be
el
federal
informe
functionaries,
va a
political
estar a cargo
officials,
de
but the
los
information will be in charge
directivos
of the directives
de Tesla.
of Tesla.
Es probable que sea
It's
mañana,
probable that it's
no
tomorrow.
sé
I'm not sure
si va a ser presencial
if it's going to
o
be in
por
presence, physical,
videoconferencia,
or via
no sé de qué
conference,
manera.
video conference. I'm not even sure in which
No,
way,
yo no
but
voy a
I'm not going to
participar en
participate in
este
that, in this
acto,
event.
Pero estoy
But
satisfecho
I am
con
satisfied
lo que se consiguió,
with what was
porque
agreed upon
significa más inversión
because it means more investments
para México,
for Mexico
más inversión para México y más empleos.
and more jobs.
Y esto también lleva
And this,
a
of
que vayan
course,
aumentando,
brings us to
los
be
salarios de los
adding the
trabajadores,
salaries of the workers.
porque entre más demanda
Because if there are more
de
demands
empleos
of
que
jobs
exista,
that exists,
aumentan más los trabajadores. Hay algo que me
workers
gustó
are
mucho
added. There's something that I really
del
liked
señor
from
Elon
this
Musk.
owner, Elon Musk.
Hablamos
We spoke about
de que no podíamos nosotros,
that we couldn't.
en el caso de baterías
In the case of batteries,
y de la fabricación
in the
de
fabrication of
otorgar
semiconductors,
los
to
subsidios
turn in
que está
subsidiaries
destinando el gobierno de Estados Unidos,
that the U.S. government is destining,
donde
where there,
si se invierte un peso,
if you invest 1
el
peso,
gobierno tiene que dar
government has to do is give
un peso 50 centavos.
a peso 50 cents.
Entonces, eso no.
So not
Un
that.
subsidio así no.
A subsidiary like that, it's impossible. So
No podríamos
we couldn't do it.
otorgarlos, esos subsidios. Entonces, él lo entendió perfectamente
He understood that
y
perfectly.
hablamos
And we
de
spoke,
que
of
sin
course,
esos subsidios,
that without those subsidiaries,
las ventajas comparativas de
the
México
advantages compared to other countries in Mexico,
únicas
they're
en el mundo.
unique in the world.
Y coincidimos,
And we coincide,
y repito, eso me dio mucho gusto,
and I repeat, I was really happy
que el
about this,
recurso principal de
that the
México
principal resource of Mexico
calidad
is the quality
de sus trabajadores.
of its workers.
La ética, la responsabilidad, la
Ethical
creatividad
responsibility,
de
creativity
los trabajadores mexicanos.
of the Mexican workers.
Y él coincidió
And he coincided with
plenamente.
them.
Eso
That, of course, I really
no se
liked.
encuentra
You can't find that anywhere
en otros lugares del mundo.
in other places in the world.
La calidad de la
Quality of
fuerza de trabajo, de la mano de obra,
the
el
manpower,
profesionalismo, la responsabilidad
professionalism,
de los
responsibility
trabajadores mexicanos.
of the Mexican workers.
Entonces,
And so,
bien sobre este tema.
it's good about this subject.
Estamos viendo, van
We're
a
looking into
continuar
it.
las relaciones.
Relations will continue, of course.
De lo que les puedo decir
And what I can tell
es
you
que
is
nos
that
entendimos bien
we understood ourselves
y fue bueno el acuerdo
really good, and
en
the
beneficio
accordance
de
and the agreements were in benefit of
Ya,
Mexico.
segunda pregunta.
Mañana se va a informar o pasado.
Tomorrow we'll be
y
informing, or the day
yo voy a
after,
seguir
and
pues,
I will
informando.
be informing you, okay?
En general. Sí,
In general,
hasta que terminemos.
until we're done here. Can't hear the question, I'm sorry.
Sí, porque
Yes, because
ya se definen
it is defined already
mucha
with
claridad
a lot of
las
clarity
prioridades de nuestro país.
the priority of our
Por
country.
ejemplo, lo del agua.
For example, the thing about the water.
No es yo
It's not
voy a
about,
invertir y
well, I'm going to invest
voy a aprovechar el agua
and I'm going to take
y voy a
advantage of the
dejar sin
water
agua
and we're going to leave
a la gente.
no water for the people.
No.
It's not about that.
Vamos primero
We'll do
a que no falte el agua
that there's no
para
water for
el consumo doméstico.
the domestic consumption.
Esa es la prioridad.
That's
Y vamos
priority.
también
And we're
orientando
going to be orienting
el crecimiento
the
hacia
growth
regiones
towards regions
donde se tiene agua.
where there are water. There is water.
Además, vamos
Besides, and furthermore, we're going to
buscando
be
que las
looking
empresas también contribuyan.
for the companies to be contributing to this.
¿En qué sentido?
In what sense?
Pues que se le paguen buenos sueldos a sus
That
trabajadores,
good salaries are paid
se cuide
to the workers,
del medio ambiente
that the environment is taken care of,
y se paguen los impuestos.
and that the taxes are paid correctly.
Va a haber desarrollo tecnológico,
There's going to be technological
no solo en
developments,
la planta,
not only in the plants,
sino
but
en lo relacionado con
in what is
el manejo del
related
agua.
to the managing of the water.
En una segunda pregunta, señor presidente.
In a second
La
question, Mr.
Auditoría
President,
Superior de la
Superior
Federación,
Auditories of the Federation
informó
informed
que hizo la auditoría
that
al
they
Centro
did an
Nacional de
audit
Control de
to
Energía,
the
CENACE,
control of energy,
y
SENACE,
detectó
and
que
detected
del 2019
that in
al
2019
2022
to 2022, there was 554
de
requests
generadoras de
of
energía
generator,
pero de estos
electrical
solo se
generators,
admitieron
and of
100,
these, only
que es
100
el
were admitted,
18%.
which is 18%. And
Y o no fueron consideradas por la
or they
Comisión
weren't
Reguladora
considered
de
by the
Energía, la CRE.
regularly
Esto me
commission,
llamó mucho la
regulatory
atención
commission.
porque
This
estas
called my
empresas
attention
son,
because these
estas
companies,
plantas
these
de
plants,
generación de electricidad son la
generating
mayoría
plants are
fotovoltaicas.
they're
Entonces,
using
yo creo que
voltage.
ahorita si queremos
And
conseguir el
if we want
compromiso
to get the
de,
compromise
que hizo México
that Mexico
en la
did
COP de Egipto
in
de
Aegis
disminuir en un 35%
Corporation,
las
minimizing a
emisiones de energía,
35%
necesitamos
to
mucha energía eléctrica.
minimize
Y pues mientras más
the
oferta,
contamination,
mejor,
and we're going to need a lot of electricity,
mejores
and
precios.
the more
Y
offering,
eso es por un
better
lado, y
pricing.
además
That's on one side, but
estas empresas, pues
these
la
companies,
generación y
the generation
transmisión
and
y
transmission
distribución
and
de electricidad
distribution
ha
of
caído.
electricity has
Es de los
fallen,
pocos rubros que no se han
and some of
recuperado.
the
Ya
few
se recuperaron.
situations that we haven't been able to
Fue
recuperate.
muy comentado que el INEGI
It was
dijo
handled
que
in a big
crecimos
way
en
that
2022
INEGI said that we grew in 2022
al 3.1
to
mucho
3.1%,
más de lo que habían previsto
much
el
more
Fondo
than
Monetario,
Fondo Monetario had
pero este
previewed.
rubro de generación
But
todavía
this
lo tenemos
generation
atrasado en un 24.9
situation, we have
del
it
2019
behind
ahora. O sea, ha
in
disminuido
1.21 to
esta
up to date,
generación.
and this generation
Yo
has diminished.
sé que porque lo hemos
I know
investigado en
because we've
CNP,
investigated
los
in
abusos que
the
había
newscast
en lo
the abuses that there were known as the auto supplying. This auto supplying was done to not pay the commission. And what we've investigated is that these companies, not all of these, but a lot of these companies
que están solicitando estos permisos ya no se concibieron al principio como para el autoabasto, pero ahora están diciendo que van a respetar la ley de la industria eléctrica con las modificaciones que se hicieron en el 2021. Entonces, ¿qué está pasando ahí? ¿Por qué no están? He visto que hay, por ejemplo, un proyecto fotovoltaico, La Esperanza en Campeche, que no se le ha dado el permiso.
Sorry about that. And what's happening there, that the permits have not been provided in Sonora that are called KIN. So these companies, what could be done so that these companies get the permits that they need and they can generate more electrical energy, clean energy, and renewable energy, and so we have more offer of the electrical service? Well, it took us time to put them in place because with the pretext of the clean energy situation, they would do dirty business. And so they were destroying, of course, Electrical Commission. That was a purpose. That was their mission. How they wanted to finish up Pemex Petroleum Company. And that the whole market from the electrical market and the petroleum would be managed by private companies. National companies and, of course, foreign. So then we stopped that tendency. And it took us time, of course, to organize the new mechanism of electrical production and petroleum production. The new laws, of course, the new rules. Now the bases are set. It's been declared as a fraud, legal fraud, the so-called automatic supplying or auto supply, where there you can see a plant, energy plant, and electrical energy plant. It was supposed to be supplying itself to another company and not. It wasn't acted like that. It wasn't performed like that. Different companies, of course, pharmacies, commerce, Oxos, for example. They would buy or purchase auctions in $1. They would become part of the company and they would receive subsidiary electricity. They would pay a lot less than the consumers paying. And the transmission wasn't charged. Transmission wasn't charged. That's why the subsidiaries. And commission also wasn't charged. And so all that was fixed. And a lot of people are understanding now that they have to regulate. They're doing it now. And I congratulate them because we're talking about thousands of companies that would hang themselves onto that, so-called diablitos, or little devils, where they would connect themselves to the public electricity. These were really diablitos. They were no diablitos, they were major devils that would hang from
Entonces,
the
ya,
public electricity.
Con este orden,
And so with this request
ya
and this
viene,
order that we have
pues,
made,
una revisión,
there's a
caso por
new
caso,
revision case by case.
se están otorgando ya permisos.
There are
Por ejemplo,
being
se tuvo
permits
una reunión que yo
released.
presidí
There was a
con
reunion
todas
that
las
I
empresas
was managing with
canadienses
all the Canadian companies
de la industria eléctrica
of electrical
de ese
industry
país,
of that
que
country
tenían
that
trámites
had
pendientes,
pending
y resolvimos todos los temas, todos los asuntos de las empresas canadienses.
procedures that we tended to all the
Atenderlos.
Canadian companies.
Con el
We took
director
half
de
a
la
day
Comisión
to
Federal
tend
de
them
Electricidad, con la
with the
secretaria
Director
de Energía,
of Electricity and
y
Secretary
salimos
of Energy. And we
con
went
un acuerdo.
out with an
Y así
agreement.
lo estamos haciendo.
And that's how we're doing it.
Y
And
estamos aceptando, está
we are
creciendo
accepting that it's growing
la generación de energía de fuentes renovables, limpias, y vamos a cumplir con los compromisos
the
internacionales.
generation of energy, renewable sources, renewable energy, clean energy, fortifying the Commission of Electricity.
Lo dije desde el principio.
I said it from the beginning. 46% of the market
a la industria privada eléctrica.
to private industry, electrical industry.
54%
54%
a la Comisión Federal de Electricidad.
to Electrical Federal Commission.
Porque es
because that's the one that tends
a los consumidores,
the consumers, domestic
la
consumers,
Comisión Federal de Electricidad.
the Electrical
Si
Commission.
desaparece la Comisión Federal
If that
de Electricidad
disappears,
o se debilita, si
or if we
fracasa como
weaken it
querían los
and it
neoliberales,
fails as neoliberal
entonces
wanted,
nos quedamos
then we'll
en
end
estado
up
de indefensión,
in a undefensive state,
dependiendo de los
depending
grandes
on
monopolios
the great
privados,
monopolies, private
extranjeros,
monopolies, foreign monopoly
que manejan en otras partes
that
y
manage
que
in
ya
other
casi
places
tenían el
and that
control
almost
de
had
todo el mercado
the total
en
control
nuestro
of the
país. ¿Y
market
eso
of our
qué
country.
significa para el
What did that
consumidor?
mean for the consumer?
Tarifas altas, lo de
Higher
España
taxes, higher tariffs.
o de Europa.
What happened in Europe? What happened in Spain?
Aquí no ha habido
Here,
aumentos
there have been any increments
en el precio de la luz,
in the light pricing,
no hay
power,
aumento en el precio de las gasolinas,
in the gases,
del
gasolines, diesel,
del gas. Hemos
of the
cumplido
gas. We have
porque hemos puesto orden.
compromised, and because this we have placed an order.
Hubiésemos seguido con la misma política,
If we would have followed the same,
que además
that besides
se
we have fulfilled those requirements,
emparejaba
those promises, and that
con el
was
predominio de la corrupción.
compared with and leveled
Iba
with
de
the
la mano de la
dominion
corrupción.
of corruption.
Pues
So-
estaríamos padeciendo mucho de altos precios, tendríamos
So
una
would have been
inflación.
suffering from high
la de
prices and inflation as Europe has.
Nosotros tenemos una inflación de 7.8, pero Europa
We have an inflation
9,
of 7.8, but Europe has 9%.
y la nuestra va a la baja.
And
Y en
ours
el
is going
caso
down. And in the case, for
de todo
example,
lo que
of
significa
all
el sector energético,
that means the
nuestra
energetic
inflación es la más baja
sector, our inflation is the
si
lowest.
consideramos Europa
If we
y Estados
consider
Unidos.
Europe and the US,
Estamos en 0.2
we are
de
0.2 of
energética
inflation in
por el control
energy
que hemos tenido.
usage because of the
Pemex,
control that we've
fíjense,
had.
el año
Pemex,
pasado,
for example,
ayer
last
fue
year,
nota en la
that was a
prensa
note yesterday in the
especializada en finanzas.
specialty
Obtuvo
finance newspapers, obtain utilities. Of course,
limitadas,
limited,
pero obtuvo utilidades. Aún
but it had them.
No aumentando
Even so, not
los precios de
adding
los combustibles.
or adding up the
destinamos
prices
un
of the
subsidio de
combustibles.
350
We
mil
destined
millones
a
de pesos para que
300,000
no aumentara el
million
precio de
pesos
las gasolinas
so that the
y de los
prices of the
energéticos.
gasolines and
Pero
energetics
eso
didn't
es fortalecer la
go up.
economía popular.
But that's fortify
Eso es
popular
control de
economy.
inflación.
That's inflation control.
Y aún con ese
And
subsidio
even so, with that subsidiary,
se obtuvo
we
utilidades en Pemex.
got utilities in Pemex.
Entonces vamos bien.
So we're doing
Y
good.
sí estamos analizando
And we
todos
are
estos
analyzing
casos
all these other cases.
y resolviendo. También no podemos,
And resolving,
porque daban permisos a diestra y siniestra
because they would get
el
permits
gobierno
left and right
anterior, sin tomar en cuenta la capacidad de las líneas de transmisión. Entonces no es, a ver,
without
genero energía,
without taking into account the lines that
voy a
provided
subirle
the
energía
energy.
a la línea de
They didn't think,
transmisión.
all right, so I'm going to put
Pues
the
se requiere un control,
energy
porque si no,
line for the production, and
se
there's a
genera,
control required. If not,
pues, un problema grave,
there's a grave problem generated from
de
that.
falta de energías, accidentes,
Lack of water,
apagones. Entonces, para
loss
eso
of power,
es
and
el
for that, of
control.
course, that's
Es
what
decir,
the control is for.
Vamos planeando y
We're going to be planning,
que sea de acuerdo a nuestra capacidad,
and that is in accordance to our capabilities, so that we don't destroy the mechanism that has already been established in the distribution of the
Yo creo que va a
power.
aumentar la demanda, ¿no?
And I think it will
De
also
energía
add into the
eléctrica.
demand
Y bueno, ya por último, nomás quería
and
preguntar,
power, right? And just to
¿qué
finish,
proceso administrativo
what
está
administrative
haciendo la
process
COFEPRIS
is the
con,
COFEPRIS doing with
Psicofarma, que es una
Psicofarma,
empresa que abastece
that is a company that
medicamentos
provides medication
para las enfermedades psiquiátricas, ¿no? Entonces,
for the
¿qué
psychiatric
procedimiento? Porque
sickness?
es
What
lo
is the
que dicen
process
en las
that
farmacias que
that's what the
porque no hay
pharmacies are saying,
abasto
because
de
there's no
de
supply
estos medicamentos
of this
psiquiátricos.
yo creo que sí
medication.
hay abasto, lo que pasa que es que hay más
I think we
control.
do have supplies, but there's more control. Would you be able to explain that for us, Health Secretary?
Gracias por la oportunidad, gracias Eduardo.
Yes,
por
thank you, Eduardo,
hacernos
for
esta
your
pregunta.
question.
Así como hablamos ahorita de
And
la
as we said about the
infodemia, de la
infodemia
desinformación
and
orquestada por medios
misinformation
corporativos que están al
orchestrated
servicio de
by
empresas,
corporative
en el
media
caso que presenté
that are in the
de
services,
de vacunas.
the case that I
Este es el
presented
caso
of
también de los
vaccines,
medicamentos
this is the same
para las
case with
enfermedades mentales,
medications
algunas
of
afecciones neurológicas.
medical and
Se
neurological
los explico de manera
situations.
sintética
I'll
y
explain to you in
espero que esto sirva para
synthetic
disipar
way, and I hope
la
this works
desinformación que ha sido
to
provocada
dissipate the
deliberadamente.
misinformation
Hay
that
una empresa
deliberately
que se
has
llama
been provoked.
Psicofarma
There's
S.A.
a company,
de
pharmacy
CB
that is called
que había sido
Psicofarma,
monopólica
SADCB, that has
en la
been
proveeduría de la
monopolized
venta de productos al sector público de
in the
salud,
selling
a las
of
instituciones
products of
públicas.
health to the
Entre
public
otras
institutions.
razones, ya era inquietante
Amongst
que
other
hubiera un
situations, it
monopolio,
was really uncomfortable
prácticamente era un
that would
monopolio de
be a
una sola
monopoly
compañía que le
in one
proveía
company that would
de
provide
estos medicamentos al gobierno
this
por
medication
muchos
to
años.
the entire government
Sin
for
embargo,
many
cuando
years.
empezó nuestra
Nevertheless,
administración,
when our
pues,
administration
trabajamos
started,
con lo que había,
we worked with what we
compramos
had.
varios años seguidos a esta
There was
empresa
a lot of purchasing
y
throughout the years.
en fechas más recientes, quizá un año, año y
And in
medio,
more recent
empezó a ocurrir
dates,
una
year,
falta
year and
de
a half,
cumplimiento de los contratos.
there is a lack
La
of the
empresa
contracts
posponía las fechas de
compliance.
entrega,
They
hacía
would
entregas
postpone the
parciales,
dates of
iba fallando en su
turning in
responsabilidad,
the
afectando
medication,
al
partial
sector
medication
público de salud.
would be turned
Esto fue
in,
motivo
affecting
de una
the
serie
public's
de
health.
observaciones y
And there
sanciones
was
por
in
parte de la Secretaría de Función
sanctions
Pública,
made
que
and
obviamente
observations
solo tiene
for the
competencia para sancionar a una
public
empresa
secretary
como
to be
proveedora
able to
de
sanction
instrumento público
a
de
company
los
as
servicios
a
públicos
provider of
gubernamentales.
governmental
La empresa,
sector.
por supuesto, ha sido libre de proveer al sector privado.
This company, of course, has
Pero
been
adicional a
free
eso,
to provide to the
COFEPRIS
private
realizó una
sector. In
inspección
addition to that,
de las
COFEPRIS
dos plantas de esta
did
empresa
a
en la Ciudad de México y
supervision
se encontraron
of these two
múltiples
plants, and we
anomalías
found a lot of
preocupantes
anomalies worrying anomalies. Some have to do with the fabrication of the product, a cross-contamination residue that would stay in the line of production would mingle with another different product, and of course that is not acceptable. And in other ways, there was an important thing as known of IDing of where some of these active medication, we're talking about psychopharmacy. Some of these medication could be drugs, basically. These, amongst other things, there are international mechanisms that is called the fiscalization team. This is a international convene where the production in one point in the world, for example in India, precursors of medication that can be used in other ways, of course, as drugs, has to be followed up on. And there's got to be a registry in the point of production, and the country needs to inform where this is being produced in this HEAS, but as well the government or the companies have to inform the governments and the HEAS where they receive. And so there are things where it doesn't level up. There was more production but less arrived to the other companies. And that's the information that we are worried about, the communication and transportation. So they find this company, and what happened is that this company did something similar to another company, this monopoly company with medication of cancer that sustained medication or hid medication for the private sector, and so created a lack of items. Notice that we do have them in the public sector because we purchase them from international companies. And Reforma started saying that they pulled out these news in commentaries and medics, counselor of health. They did this idea that the government had failed on their purchasing of medication, and because of a bad planning. Public sector has the medication against these mental and neurological situations. Where there was a failure is in the private sector, because this company was also monopolized and they're not being provided to them because they're hiding. And the pressure that they're trying to push, and at their moment, is the company that they did in PISA with the oncological medications. They want to do this pressure so that people can pressure us that COFEPRIS can take away the sanctions, which is very absurd. Obviously, COFEPRIS makes the responsibility to taking care of the people, and there's no reason why these sanctions should be removed. We are working in a mechanism where public sectors, where we do have the medication, can receive the people that are normally taken care of in the private sector of these sicknesses, so that they can be supplied with their medication in the public sector. We're not going to send medication to the private sector. So that's how it is. All right, Omar. Good morning. Omar Nuño, San Luis Potosí. Mr. President, you've been mentioning that you tried to not leave pending works before your administration finishes. But in San Luis Potosí, there's a worry because in this road, Tamazunchale, simply it looks in a 60% advancement, and there's more complicated things at Temachapa. It's a zone that you know, and the question is if this road will be finished before your presidency ends. Yes, we're going to finish it, and I do have the worry and the occupation in that location, because we have little time now, and we've had some delays because there's groups there that abuse,
quieren sacar raja
and that they want to make something out of it
la
from
necesidad que tenemos de
necessity that we have to conclude the road.
No quiero
I don't want to be more specific, but they do understand,
nada más para que sepan
just so they know,
que ya estoy informado y ya estamos actuando. Entonces,
that I am informed that we're acting on it. We're going to continue with the road. In Tamazunchale, there is a problem, a historical problem, that it's only one road, one way, and it's really difficult, very complex to widen it up. But passing through Tamazunchale is like so hard, and people know. So I gave instructions to Jorge Núñez, in Communication Secretary, to we can advance on that. That there's a way, that we can find a way, because it's surrounded of hills. We need to chop a little bit on the top. Civil engineering, but it's possible. I instructed him to that we can section the road, meaning to turning by location to companies. That is not one or two, but if we can do hire 10 companies, so that we can do it, to advance more. This same thing, of course, we're doing it in Tren Maya and in other locations to be winning time, but to tell the people in the Huasteca Potosina that it's a compromise that we're giving them to finish that road. I'm going to be there with that purpose. When? Well, maybe in about a month or so. In Huasteca. I want to go see the work, supervision of this work. Because order giving, and it's not supervised, it's not good for anything, just to say it in a nice way. If I can do a questioning to the IMSS director, I'm not sure if you know or know in the problematic with the workers of the state governor. Workers, a few weeks ago, by instructions of the governor, he decided to take away the Social Security to the workers. Nevertheless, they put in a claim and they won. This supposedly their rights is going to be restituted, but there's a problem. They also counted with a particular medical service of a capping amount. But the most complicated thing is that last week, a lot of workers that were in treatments, cancer or operative or respiratory, were pulled out from the clinics of the hospitals. They went to the IMSS and they said they were not ready to be taken care of. And now they're in the open because they're going to see their treatment stopped. And the situation is very complex because they took away the Social Security to the workers that signed to be covered. But on the other hand, the service continues to deny them. We're talking about 5,000. Some members do have it. And if I could ask you, what is your position and what would you say to the workers? Above all, there's workers that are advanced age and they have treatment with sicknesses, chronic, degenerative, and right now they don't know what to do and where to go because they don't have particular medical benefits, and even IMSS are right now nowhere to go. Thank you. Yes, so we received that notification by the state that a few years ago their workers were been taken care of in Social Security. There's some state, municipal, public universities, water
que
systems
tienen
that have
aseguramiento con el IMSS, no con el
IMSS
ISSSTE o con
insurance,
alguna
but not with
institución
ESTE
de
or
servicio
other
de los
institutions to
trabajadores
the
de los
service of the
gobiernos
workers of the
estatales
government,
en otros
state
lugares.
governments,
Cuando recibimos
as
la
in other places.
notificación,
When we receive
pues
this notification,
nosotros lo
we,
que
of
contestamos
course,
siempre
what we
es una
answer
determinación
is
del
a
gobierno estatal,
determination of the
pero se tiene
government,
que
state
cuidar
government,
siempre la
but we need to
continuidad
cover the continuity
asistencial, sobre todo
of
cuando hay algún
assistance,
padecimiento
above all
grave.
when there is a
Una de las
grave
primeras buenas noticias es
situation.
que
And
el
one of the
ESTARE
good
está
news is
entrando también
that
a San Luis
Bienestar is
Potosí. De
also
hecho,
coming into San
hasta el
Luis
día de ayer
Potosí.
empezamos la
Matter of
implementación en
fact,
varios
yesterday we
marcos
implemented in
hospitales.
different
Sin
hospitals
embargo,
there.
sí creemos que
Nevertheless, we do
que en
want
el caso de que hubiera
that in
un
the
amparo y que
case
les
where
hubieran
there is
otorgado
a
la
claim
suspensión, sí se tiene que continuar con
and
el
the
aseguramiento
suspension
hasta que
has
haya una
been denied or
resolución definitiva.
concluded, we need to clarify that
Sin
for them.
duda, creo que
Without
no
a
se puede
doubt, I
cortar
think we
tampoco
can't cut the
atajo. Al final de
services.
cuentas, la seguridad
At
social,
the end of
como
the
lo decía
day,
el
Social
presidente, es
Security,
mucho
as
más
President
amplia que
said,
solamente la
is
atención
much more than
médica,
just
tiene que
the
ver
medical
con las
attention.
pensiones,
Has to
tiene que
do with
ver
the
con
pensions, has to
necesidades
do with
económicas,
economical benefits,
incapacidades, riesgos de
eh,
trabajo, invalidez, y también tiene que ver con prestaciones
disability,
sociales como las guarderías y demás.
invalidation,
Entonces, pues vamos a hablar con el gobierno
nurseries. So
estatal
we're going to be
intentando
speaking with
encontrar algún
the state
mecanismo
government, trying to
para
find
que
a
justo la
mechanism
continuidad de
so
la
that we can
asistencial
continue
no
with
se pierda
the
en esos casos. Ahora,
continuity of
sobre el
the
seguro
assistance
privado que
keeps
pudieran haber
going.
tenido
In
algunos trabajadores, de
the
eso no
private
tengo
sector
conocimiento
medical
honestamente.
attention, I don't have knowledge of that.
No me suena muy regular que
It
tenga
doesn't
algún
really
aseguramiento del
doesn't
seguro y al
sound
mismo
regular that they
tiempo
have IMSS
una
and at the same time
cobertura
a
privada,
private
porque al final de
coverage,
cuentas no deja de ser
because at
siempre
the
muy
end of the
limitado.
day it's not,
Generalmente los
it
propios
doesn't
trabajadores
stop being
cuando hay un
rudimentary
cambio, se
for
les
the workers.
ofrece
When there's a
un
change, of
seguro
course,
privado, pues tendrán
there's
que
a
ser
private
gastos médicos
sector
mayores,
security. It
además de
had to be
incluir una
of
pensión,
major
incapacidades por riesgo
expenditure,
de
and there's got to be a
trabajo,
pension
enfermedad del
for
trabajo, o
risk
sea, es
of
mucho
sickness
más
in
amplio
the
lo que
workplace. It's
ofrece el
much
seguro social.
more
Pero vamos a
amplified as
revisar
to what
estos
the
casos particulares
Social
justamente
Security can
para que
offer,
no
but we're going
haya
to be revising these
suspensión en la
cases
continuidad
so that there's no stopping on the
de atención
continuity of
médica
the
y
medical
sobre todo
attention,
pues quienes ya
and above
puedan ser
all,
atendidos también por
to
el
whom
IMSS Bienestar.
who could ever be tended to. And what about the workers that can't go to the IMSS because they're not affiliated to them?
Pues llegar a algún acuerdo con el gobierno estatal
What's
para
the
que les vuelvan a
possibility
asegurar.
so that
En
they
ese
can be
momento pues ya
affiliated?
todas
Well,
estas
they
van
need to get
actualizadas y demás.
to
Al
be
final de cuentas,
affiliated.
insisto,
At the end of
en
the
este
day, I
sentido el gobierno
insist, in this
estatal
sense,
actúa
the
como un
state government
empleador
acts as
y el
an
empleador pues da
employer,
dado de baja, pero tiene que
and
encontrar
the employer
cómo
will
cubrir a esos trabajadores.
have to
Llevar,
find
si
how to
la
cover
pretensión
these
es
workers, and
llevarlos al
the
ISSSTE o
situation is to
darles
take
otra
them to the
atención. El
ESTE
asunto es que el trabajador
or
tiene
give them
derecho
another
a la seguridad
attention.
social
The thing is
con
that the worker
independencia de
has
cualquier
Social
institución
Security
que se le ofrezca,
rights
pero
with any
sí creo que
institution
es
that is
importante hablar
offered.
con el
But I
gobernador
think it's really important to speak with the
Gallardo
governor,
para
Gallardo,
plantearle diferentes
so that we
salidas
can
y también conocer un
give
poco
him
más de por qué fue
some
la
access and to
determinación
know
de sacarlos del seguro
about
social.
why was the
Gracias.
intention of taking them out of the IMSS
Sí, aquí
or Social
hablar
Security.
con el
Yes.
gobernador,
So speaking with the governor,
no creo que vaya a
is
haber ningún problema.
I don't think there's going to be a problem.
Trabajando
He's
de manera
working
coordinada con
in a
nosotros
coordinated way
y
with us
poner por delante
and putting
el derecho a la salud.
by front the right of
Ellos
health.
tienen que ser atendidos.
They have to be tended to.
Ojalá con amparos
And of course, with
este,
a claim or not,
hoy mismo, ¿no? Quede
today we can resolve that.
Vamos con Vicente Serrano.
We're going to go with Vicente Serrano, our friend here in the channel. Good morning to all. My grandma used to say to criticize, we need to have the tail short and the rear long, and a lot of people in the media have not understood that subject. And I would like to give context to my questioning is Raimundo Riva Palacio just a few days ago wrote that you had invested a lot of money and time to do a Sumerian trial in Palacio Nacional to hit ex-President Felipe Calderón, that in some occurrences and not strategic, you had dispatched one of your sharpshooters to create confusion to communicators upon the criminals that Arturo Beltran Lebo had paid journalists to establish the capture of Rey Zambada in 2008. Raimundo Riva Palacio also said that the sent from Palacio Nacional disseminated the situation to find and coordinate the lies with the facts that is being fed by some Mexican journalists. I assume, and I add as this sharpshooter as what Riva Palacios had referred to, because I was the first communicator from YouTube, the first YouTuber, as they try to ridiculize us to have audience in Garcia Luna trial, and we were there in the majority of that, something that Riva Palacio did not do, and I think the transcriptions of the trial would be good for him, because up to date, he still, Riva Palacios is defending Genaro Garcia Luna, and hearsay situations that added or wrote about situations that did not exist were enough to find him guilty of all the charges that he was charged with, but not enough to convince the people of his guiltiness. I think Riva Palacios was offensive. That is true that he received bribes from El Pacifico cartel. It's not sure. He protected El Cartel del Pacifico. There's no evidence to that. And he said that he was not blamed because of the narrative of the prosecution office. Went over the defense. I think that's the lack of respect for the people of Mexico that one of the greatest journalists of Mexico say a lot of people. And I mention it because you've been insistent in this situation, in the no repetition. And I will ask you, what is going to happen that Genaro Garcia Luna now is guilty? You've sustained with congruency that you're not going to go after, you're not going to judge or try the ex-presidents with all that we already know, Mr. President, in the trial, and with everything that was not said in the trial. Don't you have enough elements to maybe rethink investigations for the ex-presidents, Vicente Fox, Felipe Calderon? Now that we know that Genaro Garcia Luna was convened first in the AFI and then as Secretary of Security, Public Security, and understanding that a lot of these that marched this last Sunday, they were also quiet. There's Santiago Krill, that was Secretary of Governments. He's as Calderonicamente is denied that he knew, Calderon knew about it, and that he had notion of the lies of Genaro Garcia Luna. Do I ask you now, Mr. President, they said it's wise to change opinion. Isn't it time now that Mexico President orders the investigations, serious investigations through WIF of the ex-presidents, and that we can tell Riva Palacio, and that is not only in a witness, that Universal received 25 million monthly pesos in bribes by part of Genaro Garcia Luna to protect his image. And among other things, there are very active members in politics like Javier Lozano, Roberto Gil Suart, all of these defending Genaro Garcia. A lot of Mexicans are thirsty of justice. If you don't do it, how can we look forward to justice if what we have a sentence of Garcia Luna until July, and according to legislative, the accused can be and can go with mechanisms to get informed to permit to lessen the years
de condena
of condemnment,
y al mismo tiempo
and at the same time
aportar
to
más
be able
información
to give more information
que desde luego
that, of course,
existe
exists
o él sabe,
or that he knows of.
él posee información
He has information,
valiosa
valuable information,
y ayer hablaba yo
and yesterday I was talking about
buen servicio al
that it would
país,
be a great service
el que él,
that he, independently of the reduction of years, that he will be in jailed,
ayudara
that he can help.
Explicando cuál fue su situación
What was his situation
en el gobierno de Fox
in the Fox government and in Calderón government?
Entonces, no
So
descartemos esa
let's
posibilidad.
not forget about that possibility,
Porque existe el mecanismo
because mechanism exists,
y a él
and of course to him
condenando
they're condemning him to 20 years
años como mínimo
as minimum
cárcel
in jail
a
time
pena perpetua.
to
Entonces,
perpetual time in
él tiene
life in
que
jail.
decidir.
So he will have to decide.
Yo creo que para el gobierno de Estados
I
Unidos,
think that
para la
for the
justicia estadounidense,
Mexican or the U.S.
el gobierno
governments,
pero
and
sobre
for
todo
the
en bien de nuestros
overall in good of our people,
pueblos, sí valdría la pena
it would be
que
valuable
hablar.
so that he speaks.
Por parte de Genaro García Luna.
All right, give me just a second, my friends, because we're having some technical difficulties here. Okay, looks like we're back. 1 minute, please.
Para informar. Porque existe el mecanismo
Because mechanism exists.
y a él
And of course, to him,
condenando
they're condemning him. They're condemning him. Life in jail.
decidir.
So he will have to decide.
Yo creo que para el gobierno de Estados
I
Unidos,
think that for the
estadounidense,
Mexican or the U.S. governments,
pero
and
sobre
for
todo
the
en bien de nuestros
overall in good of our people,
pueblos, sí valdría la pena
it would be
que
valuable
hablar.
so that he speaks.
Por parte de Genaro García Luna.
All right, give me just a second, my friends, because we're having some career
Ahora que se oponen a la
that
Guardia
they're
Civil,
against
incluso
the National
que
Guard,
la Guardia Civil dependa de la Secretaría de la Defensa,
and including
Hablan de
that the
militarización.
Secretary of Defense depends on the,
lo que quisieran
and they talk about
es que la
militarization.
Guardia
And
Civil
what they really want is
fuese
that
como la
the
Policía Federal y que estuviese
National
bajo
Guard
el
would be
mando
as the
de una especie de García Luna.
federal police, and it would be under the command of some type of Garcia Luna guy.
Cuando
When
se trata
this
de
actually
la
means
seguridad del pueblo,
of the security of the people
quienes
who
deben ser responsables
have to be
de la
responsible
seguridad del pueblo
of
deben
the
de
security
ser
of the people and have to be
íntegros
integral,
incorruptibles,
incorruptible,
completamente honestos.
completely honest.
Hablábamos también
We were
que
speaking about as well
un ladrón
about a thief,
común y corriente,
a common thief,
pues debe ser castigado. Pero un
has to be
ladrón
punished.
que al mismo tiempo actúa
That
como
a
servidor público,
person that
como servidor público,
is a thief that
debe ser
acts as a public
doblemente
servant has to be double
castigado,
punished
porque está incumpliendo
because he's not
pues,
complying
compromiso de servir a los demás.
to serve
Tiene una doble
the rest,
responsabilidad.
has a double responsibility.
Entonces,
So
sí
then
sería muy bueno
it would be really good
el que él hablara
that he would speak,
cómo entró
Genaro Garcia Luna would speak. How did he
por el
come in?
CISEN,
How did he go through El Cisen?
porque esto viene
Because this is about
de tiempo atrás.
from way back.
Es importante eso.
This is
Y
important here.
luego, ¿por qué el AFI?
And why AFI?
Yo recuerdo dos cosas del AFI.
I remember two things about AFI.
Cuando me desaforaron,
When I
me tocó
was
ir a declarar
attacked, I had to go declare
a la Procuraduría.
to the Department of
Y,
Justice,
pues traía yo todo en contra.
to
Pero
the
sobre
prosecution
todo, los
office, and I had
medios.
everything against, but above all, the media.
¿Y saben qué me hicieron?
And you know what they did?
Que cuando salgo de la Procuraduría,
That when I come out of
los
the
del AFI
that office,
me rodean
the ones from AFI surround me,
como si yo fuese un delincuente para la foto del Reforma. ¿Quién era el director del
they
AFI?
act as if I was a criminal for the picture. Who was the leader of AFI? And then
Me quitan el fuero, me voy a
they take
mi
away my
departamento
political
a
power.
Tepilco,
I go to my apartment in Topilco,
y
Amor,
un señor del AFI que, por cierto,
and a person from El AFI that besides
en otra vida, que en paz descansa, también
he already
del
passed
mismo
away.
grupo, lo identifican, sacan hasta fotografías en donde estaba
They identify him and they take pictures
ya
of him. And
indagando.
he was
Yo vivía en ese entonces junto al CUC,
asking around. I was living
Centro
next to El Cook
Universitario.
in the university
Centro
Center,
Cultural Universitario,
Centro
es de los,
Cultural, which
dominicos,
is one of the
y entonces
Sunday workers.
éramos
And then
vecinos.
so we were neighbors.
Por ahí querían entrar
They wanted to
a
come
mi
in
departamento
to my apartment.
del AFI.
The people from El AFI.
Entonces, a ver, ¿qué relación con el fiscal
So what relationship with the prosecution
de la Concha?
of La Concha?
¿Qué relación
What
con el que estaba
relation
en el
with
CISEN
the one that was in Cisen
en ese entonces? Luego,
in those days? And
Guillermo
then
Valdés,
Guillermo Valdés, of course,
no, pero ese no estaba. Ese
he
estaba,
wasn't there.
había otro.
There's
Porque
another one
ese llegó con Calderón,
because he arrived with Calderon, of
porque era
course,
periodista,
because he was a newspaper or a journalist, supposedly. An investigator.
tenía una empresa de
He had this
encuestas junto
survey
con,
company
o la tiene,
together
sí,
with, or has
junto con
with,
GEAS,
HEAS or something,
el hijo de don Jesús.
together with Mr. Jesus Reyes Aroles.
Imas era el que estaba, creo.
Imas, I think it
No,
was.
eso fue después. Imas fue con,
And that was then,
con el de Hidalgo, ¿cómo se llama?
he was with the ones of Hidalgo.
Con Osorio, sí, pero el CISEN es
But I think Cisen
clave.
is
Creo que Tello
key.
Tello
I think
Pío.
Tello Pio
porque después de Tello estuvo también el final.
Because after Tello, there was this.
El que fue de la
No,
Marina,
no.
Wilfredo Robledo. Pero bueno, entonces, ¿cómo llega ahí al AFI, ¿no? Y luego, ¿cómo lo nombra secretario de Seguridad? Pero hay dos cosas más. Son 6 años y él va ascendiendo.
It's 6 years, and he keeps ascending
como
to
brazo derecho.
Place himself as the right hand of Calderón.
Y lo otro, ayer vi.
And then the other situation that I saw yesterday, hopefully that we can work on it,
De quien fue embajador.
an interview that was ambassador or in charge of the embassy, of men responsible of business. He speaks about that they knew, but they knew the people from the governments, the U.S. government. And from the 8th or the 10th, we'll see it right now. We're talking about the ambassador of the U.S. in Mexico, of course, in charge of the ambassador that is doing these declarations. And so it is really strange as well that the agencies of the U.S. government hadn't acted, or that they took forever to act. And why not? Of course, Garcia Luna speaks about this. Because they would reward him. He would work with them in a coordinated way. So let's wait. It's really important. This is really important. And I've said it, and I took my position on it. Let's punish these delinquents, common delinquents, and the ones with the white collar delinquency. Because what happened in those presidencies, Fox and Calderón, is that they associated themselves, organized crime, with white-collar delinquency. And if Genaro Garcia Luna don't speak, are you going to ask for investigation? Let's wait. Let's wait. Let's not forward ourselves. This is a very interesting subject, so that this never happens again in the country. And it's not with the deal of vengeance, because it's going to help us a lot. Because they felt like they were untouchable. And besides, it was normalized. Mr. Jesus would say, Mr. Jesus Reyes Heroles would say, the great, grandfather of the one that is writing in El Reforma, that is totally different now. He would say that they would steal, political people would steal, and they would do whatever they wanted. And textually they would say, and the worst of the worst was is they don't even lose their respectability. Corruption was seen something normal. That's why Mr. Peña, with all due respect, to say that corruption was part of the Mexican culture.
Porque era
because it
algo que
was
querían
something that they wanted
que se aceptara.
to be accepted.
Afortunadamente,
Fortunately,
es tanta la
it's so
reserva de
much
valores
the
culturales, morales, espirituales que tiene nuestro
values,
pueblo,
spiritual,
que
cultural
resistimos eso.
values that we have that we
Porque yo
resisted
puedo
that.
asegurar hoy,
Because I can guarantee
pesar
you
de
right
todo
now,
eso,
aside from all that,
de que la mayor riqueza de
that the
México
main
es la honestidad
richness
de
of
su
Mexico
pueblo.
is the honesty of its people.
Bueno, entonces,
And so,
sí avanzaron, pero fue una
but it was
lanzada tremenda.
a great
Desde
throw
el que no tranza, no avanza,
from what they used to say, that the one that doesn't
la
cheat
moral
does
es
not
un árbol que
advance,
da moras,
that the
político,
moral ways are,
pobre,
it's a
pobre
tree that
político.
gives sweeteners, poor
No
politician, and they still couldn't do it.
Y eso es lo que hay que evitar.
And that's what we're trying to
Es que
avoid.
antes algunos no decían, estudia,
Some before would say,
Pero
oh,
cuando seas
well,
grande,
go to school so that when you're
seas como
older,
don fulano,
you can be like this
un
guy,
reverendo ladrón.
a reverend thief.
Era el ejemplo, ¿no?
That was the example.
Y había que triunfar a toda costa, sin escrúpulos morales. de
And
ninguna
you had
índole,
to
y era
advance
a
with
los que se les aplaudía.
any scrutiny, and those were the ones
Le
that
ha
were
ido re
applauded.
bien, ya se coló.
Oh, he's doing good. He's already in. He's
Ya,
earning.
Tiene una casa
He has a great house,
de lujo.
luxury
Tiene
house.
departamentos en el extranjero.
He has apartments in the
Vive con
foreign apartments.
de privilegios.
Lives with all these privileges,
Lujo
attentions,
barato.
cheap
De
luxury,
moralidad.
and morality.
Entonces,
And so,
ahora,
now,
con esto, ayuda a decir no.
it helps us
Eso
to
no es
say
la
no.
felicidad.
That's not
Es como lo
happiness.
de las drogas,
It's like the drugs.
que hay que hacer campaña a los jóvenes.
We need to do
constantemente,
campaigns to the
de que
young
eso
people constantly
mata.
that kills.
Y ahora que están hablando de
And
estos
now that they're
medicamentos
speaking about these medications
que se usaban para
that
hacer
were
el
given
fentanilo,
and
y
used
por eso se
to
puso orden.
do fentanyl,
Porque
and that's why
con
there
esos
was order.
medicamentos
Because with those
este,
medications,
se hacen esas drogas
those
que
drugs are
destruyen a la población.
manufactured
También
and
nos hemos
destroy
librado de eso. Lo más
population.
que ha protegido al pueblo ha sido la tradición cultural de México.
It was the
Nuestras
natural culture of
culturas.
Mexico, our
Es lo
cultures.
que más nos ha ayudado. Entonces, sí, sería muy conveniente
So it would be really convenient,
García Luna hablara. Y luego la relación con
and
los
so
medios.
that Garcia Luna could speak,
O sea, nada más que
and
nos
the media
explicara
as well, just so that they can explain
cómo tenía
how this was handled.
tan buena fama,
So much fame,
porque pues es todo. Los medios
because
lamentablemente
sadly the
han estado
media
involucrados
have been involved
en todos estos actos
in all these
de
acts
corrupción.
of corruption.
Entonces, sí sería muy bueno
So it would be really good
que él actuara como testigo,
acts as a
protegido,
witness, as a protected witness,
ampliara
would
la
amplify.
información.
En algún momento se lo
The
planteé,
information.
presidente, que si
In a
había
moment I
la
asked you,
posibilidad de que
Mr.
los
President,
medios
if it was
estuvieran
possible that
involucrados en
the
situaciones de
media that was
corrupción.
involved in
Creo que
situations
se lo
of corruption,
pregunté por una
I
de
think I
estas
asked you
situaciones que surgieron en torno a Lito
in
Moreno,
situation
el
that
martes
came
del
up with
Jaguar
Lito
de Laida
Moreno and
Sansores.
Martes del Jaguar
Ahora se lo pregunto
of
nuevamente.
Laida. I'll ask you again,
Esos medios de comunicación
those
que
media
han sido señalados, que
communicators
están bajo sospecha
that
de
were
haber estado
signalized,
relacionados
that
con
are
Genaro
under
García Luna de
suspicion,
forma
that are vinculated with
corrupta,
Garcia Luna in a corrupt
¿deberían de
way,
recibir
would they need
publicidad
to be
oficial o
receiving
deberían
official publicity, or they should cut publicity. So let's not forget, Televisa received hundreds of millions of pesos for a series that was called Equipo. Universal in the trial of Garcia Luna received 25 million pesos a month. These guys are receiving public publicity. In Televisa, yes. But in the case of Universal, I think not. Is it public with the Universal or Reforma? No. Thing in Televisa is different because it helps us to inform the majority of the people. There's another criteria there. But we cannot put your offering and your statements in a broken sack. So we're not gonna discard anything, but we're not gonna forward ourselves. Let's take it easy on this because we are in a rush. Let's look into the... It's an internationalist that does the interviews. Salazar, Ana María Salazar. Meanwhile, they find it. Let me ask you something. Isn't it enough with what we know? With what you know? To start investigations to a commission of the truth? It's a lot better to have all the elements. I say it because the partners just laughed. People lying. That shouldn't be important. If it was for that, they would have defeated us already. For Riva Palacios and Ciro or Loret or Marin, Lopez Dóriga, etc., we wouldn't exist here politically. Maybe if you can get a video, a message that I like really much about the people, that there's a great creativity of our people. It says, don't get involved. They destroy themselves. Maybe that you can find it. It's a Facebook message. So not get involved is the idea. Only, just imagine the shame of Riva Palacio when he says that dollars wouldn't come in a bag. Riva Palacio spoke about the tonnage, defending Garcia Luna. But at the end of the day, Riva Palacios lately, they're doing this analysis, I think, what we seen yesterday about Loretta Mola. They're accepting, Riva Palacios accepting, that maybe today he can write about something else, but as they say one thing, they say another. Loret needed to be clarified to having Genaro Garcia Luna. He was such a neighbor in Miami. Yeah, he needed to say his vinculation with Garcia Luna and how it was that they came into that agreement for the fake news. He needed to say about a lot of things, but maybe that interview, that's a good one too. An interview for Calderon, I'm not sure if it's another newspaper. And Calderon says, yes, so happens that Garcia Luna is guilty. I'm going to clarify about the subject. So we're waiting
la aclaración. Es más, aquí está.
the clarification.
Sí, lo invito aquí. O sea, que nos
I'll invite him to come
explique
here
su relación con García Luna.
so that he can explain his relationship with Garcia Luna.
Y además,
And as well,
¿ese fue el que le preguntó?
No,
he
no,
was the one that asked him.
¿Quién fue?
Loret.
Who was it?
Ah,
Loret?
Sería bueno porque
Yes, that would be good because this helps the people a lot to get
Por lo mejor ya le
informed.
cuadra, ya ve que
Or
Leo
maybe
Zuckerman decía que no le cuadraba
Leo
la
Zuckerman
palabra.
said that didn't get enough the numbers right.
Si viniera aquí,
If Calderon would come here,
nos comprometemos
we compromise ourselves
que no
to
haya preguntas,
there's no questions,
nada más que dé su testimonio.
only to give his
¿Por qué
testimony.
decimos que aquí? Bueno,
And why are we saying here? Because
fue presidente,
he was president,
haya sido como haya sido.
whichever way it was.
Y
And
presumir, pero
it's not to show off, but
esta conferencia la ven muchos.
this conference is seen by a lot of people.
A ver, la entrevista.
Okay, the interview. Let's
A ver,
watch.
primero, pero la otra es muy buena.
First, but
porque
the
es
other
un
one is really good
embajador.
because it's an ambassador that is saying this.
Porque también, ¿cómo es eso?
Because how does that work?
Aquí se hacen todos
Here
estos
they're
acuerdos
doing all these
mafiosos, ¿no?
mafia agreements.
Se alimentan, se nutren mutuamente.
They feed each other,
Autoridades
authorities,
con delincuentes.
with
Pasa la droga a Estados
delinquencies,
Unidos y allá,
and they
No
take
hay.
the drug over there, and there's no
bandas.
No hay capos ahí.
gangs,
No
there's no
hay.
capos.
Pero también sus agencias
But their agencies,
no ven nada.
they don't see
No
anything.
actúan.
They don't
Nada
act.
más nos enteramos hace un mes.
We just noticed a month ago that the one that was
encargado de
there
la DEA un tiempo
in
en
charge
México,
of the DEA in Mexico,
solo lo destituyeron.
they just
Que
destituted
le
him
encontraron
because they found vinculations
con jefes
with
de
cartel
la
bosses
delincuencia en México.
in Mexico.
Hace un mes
Just about a month ago.
y ya no hay
And
información.
so, there's no information about that.
Ahí sí no hay un comunicado del
There's no
Departamento de
communication about the Department, the head of State,
Estado. Sí,
Department of State. Of course, that's why I'm saying it.
No.
No.
Nada más
There's,
para el
it's
señor
just
Blinken,
so Mr. Blinken
que ayer
that
habla de
yesterday
la democracia
said
en México.
about democracy in Mexico,
Yo le recomendaría que
and I would
vuelva
recommend
a leer
him to read again
Alex Tocqueville,
Alex Tocqueville.
que escribió sobre la fundación
He wrote about the
de Estados
foundation of the
Unidos, la
U.S.
democracia en América,
and democracy in America because I think
tiempo que ellos regresen
that it's time that they go back to their origins,
con todo respeto.
with all due respect.
Y, de nuevo,
And again,
para que nos
to
entendamos,
be able to understand each other.
en el gobierno que represento hay más
In
democracia
the government that I represent, there's more democracy
que en el gobierno.
than in the government that is in the
Hay más
U.S.
democracia en México hoy
There's more democracy here in Mexico than democracy that
pueda existir en
could
Estados
exist in the U.S. And do you think as the way that they're trying Garcia Luna, they can try their agents?
Unidos.
Yes,
García
that's
Luna,
important, but Garcia Luna has to talk.
¿con quién tuvo tratos?
Who did he deal with? That's what he
O
needs
sea,
to
por
say.
ejemplo, el operativo de
For
Rápido y
example, the
Furioso,
Operation Fast
eso
and
fue
Furious.
convenido entre gobiernos.
That was a
qué
convenience in
le
between
dieron
governments. And
carpetazo?
why did they forget that? Put the carpet all the way down.
Es más, ahí está el que
And there it is, the one that was
es
also
opositor a nosotros,
opposing us,
Sarucán,
Sarukan.
embajador,
He was ambassador
cuando Rápido y Furioso.
when the Rapido and Fast and
No
Furious.
solo García Luna.
Not only Garcia Luna.
¿El presidente qué? ¿No lo sabía?
What about the president? He didn't know about
Tampoco.
that? The U.S. president?
Cuando introducen armas,
when they're introducing
estamos
weapons,
hablando de un operativo
and we're talking about an
de
operation
gobiernos
of governments
que deciden introducir
that
armas a
decide
México para
to
que esas
introduce
armas
weapons in Mexico so that these
le
weapons
lleguen
get
a los delincuentes,
to the delinquents,
armas supuestamente preparadas con
weapons
sensores,
supposedly prepared with sensors,
para que así,
so that
es
then
que es increíble, o sea,
it's just incredible
el nivel de ingenuidad
the level of ignorance,
y de ineptitud
of incapability,
en un narcoestado
narco state,
donde estaban infiltradas todas las instituciones
where all the institutions
que
were
no se iban a enterar
involved. How did they not know about all this?
los de la delincuencia
The ones from the
que las armas
delinquency, that the
llevaban
weapons
sensores.
had sensors.
¿Qué pasó? Pues se las
Well, what
les
happened? So
quitaron
what
los
happened was
sensores.
that
O es,
the sensors
aunque
were
no se los
taken
hayan
away,
quitado,
or even if
era
they
lo que
didn't,
pasaba cuando
weren't
se
taken
robaban
away, that's what happened when they would steal
80,000 barriles diarios de
80,000
combustibles
barrels of combustibles,
que tenían un sistema de
that they had a
sensores
whole system of sensors
con alarmas en
with
la torre
alarms
3 de
in
Pemex,
the third tower of Pemex,
y bajaban las presiones
and
de
pressure
los
will come
ductos
down of
porque
the
los estaban interviniendo,
aqueducts of
los
the
estaban ordeñando,
petroleum because they were
y
stealing from
sonaban
them,
las alarmas,
and the alarms would go off.
pero podían sonar día
But
y
they could,
noche
they could, the alarms
y
could
nadie
sound
actuaba.
day and night, and nobody would act.
También un poco lo de García Luna, lo que
It's a little bit
sorprendía a
about
Ciro
Garcia Luna,
y
what surprised
todos los que iban al
Ciro
búnker,
and everybody that would go to the
de un
bunker.
sistema
There's a whole system
que ya les he dicho que
that I've told you about,
sería bueno que una
that it would be
mañanera
nice that we can
lo
dedicate
hiciéramos allá,
a
porque yo también
morning
tengo ganas de
conference,
ir.
do it
O
over there,
sea,
because I want to go over there
a conocer el búnker ese,
to meet that,
con sistemas,
know that bunker with
pantallas.
screens,
Ayer encontramos
systems,
un
and then we
sistema
found
de esos
yesterday one of those systems
en Quintana Roo,
in Quintana
de
Roo
la delincuencia.
for the delinquency.
¿Cómo le llaman a esos?
What do they call those?
C5,
Says C5s
de la
video,
delincuencia.
but for
Tenían
delinquency.
hasta cámaras
They even had
en el
cameras
aeropuerto
in the
para
airport
saber
to know
los aviones que llegaban, todo.
the
Pues
planes that
C5.
would arrive. A C5 system.
Entonces,
So then
sería muy importante
it would be really
conocer
interesting
todos. A ver qué dijo.
to know all this.
A ver.
All right, let's take a look then.
Aquí en Latinos,
Here in Latinos, the ex-president Felipe Calderón,
y lo cuestioné sobre el papel de
and I
Genaro
questioned him
García Luna
about
en su
the
gobierno.
accomplishments of Genaro Garcia Luna in his government. Would you put Garcia Luna again? With maybe with the information that we have now, maybe not. But it's an information that I didn't have in 2005, 2006 when I decided to name him. It was a prominent functionary of justice. Then, could we expect from Felipe Calderón a public apology if he ends up being condemned? We'll see. I don't want to speculate, Carlos. And I think it's really important in the presumption of innocence, but what is true, and I write in that book of difficult decisions, if he's condemned for what he's being blamed, of course, I consider a very great treason, and I will assume my part of what
Ah, bueno,
happens.
eso es todo. El otro, pero el otro está,
Well, that's
el otro
all.
está mejor.
But the other one is even better.
Está mejor.
Agregado de negocios por muchos años. Además,
This
es un
added
gran
by a lot of
conocedor
businesses,
de
and
México. Es
it's
una
a
de las
great
personas
person that knows
ahora
about
retirada,
Mexico.
pero una de las personas que
He's
más
retired now, but one of
conoce
the
cómo
people that
funciona la
knows
política
better of
mexicana
how the
y sobre
Mexican
todo
politics
cómo
work,
debe de funcionar
and
la
above all,
relación
how it should work,
bilateral entre ambos
the
países.
bilateral
Él fue
relation
agregado de
in between
negocio,
a lot of
cuando
countries. He was
estaba
added
el
to this
tema,
deal
cuando Genaro García
when
Luna era
situation
secretario
Genaro Garcia Luna
de
was
Seguridad Pública.
Secretary
Y
of
entonces
Public
le
Safety,
pregunté, tuve la oportunidad
and
de
I asked them to John Philly, not about this claim about Senator Grassley, the senator that is investigating the DA and FBI, but I also asked him what was known from the embassy about the vinculation of Garcia Luna and the organized crime, and this is what he commented. That is precisely the question that I'm asking myself. Miguel Madrigal, is agent from the DEA. He presented the evidence of a conversation that he personally had with El Grande, Sergio Villarreal. And El Grande, in 2010, tells him that Garcia Luna is in the nomina or the payroll of El Chapo. Madrigal never informed in my embassy, and I say my embassy because I shared obviously with the ambassador, Carlos Pascual, with Joseph Evans, El Jefe, the boss of the DEA, the inner circle of the Merida Initiative, and we were putting in millions and millions of dollars to the Secretary of Defense and Public Secretary. And we would accomplish a lot of collaborations, and we had a lot of positive effects, and all the world thought that Garcia Luna was really this guy, the main person, super cop, that he was different. He wasn't like other Mexican police. He was a great man that simply dedicated himself to work and was accomplishing a lot of things in judicial material. Madrigal in 2010 was by El Grande stated that there was information that indicates that he is in the payroll. What is Madrigal doing with that information? Apparently, he told them to the prosecution office in the U.S., most probably in Houston, on those times, and they didn't do anything. They never informed anybody about the Department of State. They never informed the ambassador in Mexico City, and so it was ended up in a safe box somewhere. And the great question that I have and that I share with Senator Grassley is, if the DEA had information, believable information, and obviously it was believable because it was enough to condemn Garcia Luna, when Madrigal declared 2 weeks ago in an open court in Brooklyn, if he had this information in 2010, why didn't he share it with the diplomatic officials that were in charge of the collaboration of America? This is a great incognito, and I want to know why as well. Now, I did claim and question the ex-ambassador. It's going to be really difficult for the auditorium of security that this is really disorganized, this U.S. government. And I asked them about what's the process that should exist inside the government of the U.S. that could order this type of information, intelligence, or this type of claims, because there's a lot of information from these witnesses that condemn Genaro Garcia Luna. There's a lot more names from these witnesses that mention ex-presidents, and so I asked them, so what's going to happen now? How is this Department of State going to coordinate? What demands are there going to be in the table? Because these types of trials and obviously these types of accusations have a great impact in the bilateral relation, and this is what he said. Ana Maria, as you well known by your time in the Clinton administration and before that working with the U.S. government, there are mechanisms, a lot of mechanisms of collaboration, information. There's one in particular that is called by its numbers and letters in English is SARC. The committee are members Special Activity Review Committee. Is a process in Washington that Justice Department has to coordinate executive secretary of this exercise, and when an agency, investigative agency, whether it's FBI or DEA or U.S. Marshals, whatever agency of investigation in the U.S. in federal level, when they think of investigating a foreign officer in a government, they have the responsibility to coordinate a memorandum that circulates precisely through various dependencies in a high level in a very compartmentalized location, and confirming the bosses of DA, CIA, FBI, and be careful when we have information, credible information that permits us to start an investigation about certain people in the government, whatever, of whatever country. In Garcia Luna's case, that never happened. And that obviously, and I was the one that would receive those memorandums in time in the Department of State when I was in the Bureau of Businesses and Deals of Occidental. And as far as I know, there was not a SARC about Garcia Luna. Why? We would need to ask the Department of Justice, and this is precisely what Senator Grassley is doing. Ahí está. There it is. This is public. Just hold on, because in the case Fast and Furious, to whatever comes to, because let's remember Joe Biden was Vice President, Barack Obama, everything. Let's talk about everything. Who doesn't owe anything, doesn't fear anything, right? And they can't hide any information in the Mexico government or the U.S. government. To close and leave the microphone, did you desist of the idea of Cesar de Castro? I ask you because of this. I spoke with Cesar de Castro. I would see him uncomfortable and even worry because of the consequences of what you've said here in the morning conference. And we also have to say that Miguel Arzate from Channel 14, as me and other co-workers, we're being signified as the senders of Palacio Nacional to invade, to be questioning Cesar de Castro, mentioning the exaggeration, if it's not a lie, the exaggeration of Cesar de Castro with your interrogation of Rey Zambada, and even Carlos Loretta Moda and Carlos Ochoa would laugh because after they would mention you, we would go do damage control as if we work for you. But I don't think it's just a over-the-top case. It had repercussions because even Cesar de Castro had told me about that before the audiences. Do you think it would be enough for the lawyer to apologize? Well, I want to know, how do you elaborate that question? He didn't want to say that for more they asked him about it. Because I have two hypotheses on that. One is that it for sure is in the paperwork of Rey Zambada. And he was wrong, this lawyer, when he read and he improvised, speaking about the money had been given for the campaign when I had against Fox, and that he was right. But there is an existence, there's a claim that they gave some money during my government when I was governor in Mexico City. They speak about Regino, I think. And I want to know about that. First of all. Second, the other hypothesis is that they sent him a question. Of course, who sent it? Well, my adversaries, of course. Felipe Calderón? Yes, of course. It could be that to send a message that they're all the same. And to send the message that I am just like them. Even Loret yesterday would say that Mexico was blamed, and as if Mexico was only Garcia Luna or Loreto Mola. Mexico is above all of us. That's a great nation. So it's the same thing. It's the same strategy. Or same, they're all the same. I've gone through that for a long time. And the campaigns, so that they don't fall on that. Somebody that voted for Fox and noticed that Fox was not to the level that we needed of the circumstances, so that they don't have their arm twisted. Fox accepted really easily the fact that he could say they're all the same. And of course, with Calderón, can you imagine the ones that voted for Calderón? And even so, they backed up that fraud that they had against us. What can they say now? There's two ways. Only two. Calderón is my leader. As others, there's so many that defend him. He's innocent, Calderón, supposedly. Or let's say, well, I was wrong. There are very few that say that. Because in conservatism, there's a lot of no humility. I'm still waiting all this to pass. I learned that political ways is time. Just imagine how many years in this fight and how much perseverance. So just imagine. They said that we were crazy when we started. Or that they used to say that it wasn't true. That PRI and PAN were the same. When I was speaking about the PAN. Now it's the same. Are you going to wait for the years of the condemnation? Yes, I will have to wait. This is starting. It's really important for the public life. But let's not think about ourselves. We are already heading out. Let's think of the people that are coming behind us. New generations. We have to turn in good numbers for them. Our parents didn't give us that. The country didn't. It wasn't given to us like that. As we would turn it in. how would we turn it in
con
if
rectitud y decoro.
we don't act correctly and with the
Cuando nos
core?
entregaron, era otra cosa.
When the country was given to us, it was another
No
thing.
había contaminación,
There was no
no había la
contamination,
violencia
there was no violence
que hay ahora.
that we have now.
Habían más valores.
There was more
culturales,
values,
morales,
cultural values,
espirituales,
moral, spiritual,
más respeto.
more respect,
Y
at
diría
least.
menos corrupción.
And I would say less corruption.
Sí había,
There was
pero
corruption,
no hay un periodo.
but there's no
con
period
más corrupción en
with
toda la
more
historia de
corruption
México
in the whole history of Mexico
el periodo
than in
neoliberal de
neoliberalism
36 años.
of 36
Ni
years.
se compara con los
It's not
3
even
años, 3
compared
siglos
with the
de saqueo
300
colonial.
years of colonial sacking.
Nada más hagan la cuenta
Just do the math
de lo que se han llevado de oro y de
of
plata
what has been stolen of
en los últimos tiempos
silver and gold
durante el periodo neoliberal
during the neoliberal
en
period
comparación
in
con todo
comparison
el oro y toda la
to with
plata
all
que
the
se llevaron
gold
los
and
españoles en 3 siglos.
silver that Spaniards took in 300
En
years.
comparación
Nothing compares to
con la
that
extracción
with the
de las
extraction
riquezas de México
of the richness of
en el periodo
Mexico
neoliberal.
in the neoliberal period.
Nada.
Doesn't
Absolutamente.
compare, absolutely.
No. El periodo neoliberal fue
Neoliberal
terrible
period
en
was
México.
terrible in Mexico.
Y se aplica lo que decía Tolstoy.
And Tolstoy is
Un gobierno que
applicable.
no
What do you
procura
say?
la
A
justicia no es
government
más que una
that
banda
doesn't
de
procure
malhechores.
justice is
Y eso
nothing
fue lo
more
que
than a
padecimos.
gang of thieves.
Y eso es lo que defienden los que
And that is what is
manifestaron.
being
No todos,
defended as people
vinieron
are
a buscar
manifesting. Not everybody, because
que
there
no
was
sabían a
some
qué,
that came that didn't even know why they were here.
criados y
People that were brought in,
otros
and
también
others
desinformados. De
were
buena fe.
misinformed, a good.
Escuchaba yo a uno que decía, yo no
And there were
estoy
some that would say, I'm not against
del presidente.
the
Yo
president.
estoy defendiendo al INE
I'm defending the
porque lo
INE
considero
because I
un
consider
buen,
it a good
instituto, una buena
institution.
Pues es falta de información.
Their lack of
Pero
information,
no
that's
es,
why they were there.
no vamos a decir todos.
But it's not, I'm not saying all of them
Los
that came.
sectores conservadores,
The conservative
clase
sectors
media,
of middle
los
class, I understand them.
o sea, es un estilo de vida
It's a way of life that they have,
muy aspiracionista,
aspirational,
que tiene una manera de pensar.
that have a way of thinking, in sort,
Apenas se les empieza a ir bien y ya
that
se vuelven ladinos, ¿no? Y clasistas, y
they
racistas.
start convening and they become this classist, racist, but I understand them.
Hay mucho atraso,
There's a lot they're lacking behind,
pero hay unos
but there's some that really on top.
que son los convocantes,
The people that
los dirigentes.
came to the
¿Y
to the
cómo
march
obtuvieron
this
su
Sunday, and
fortuna?
how did they obtain their fortune?
Para ver si los van a 40 muertos.
Crash in
Hace
Panama,
una
40 dead.
semana,
About a week ago,
aquí en nuestro país,
here in our
otra
country,
volcadura, 20
another
muertos inmigrantes.
crash, 20
Y eso
migrants killed. And that, of
no
course,
se
what?
debe de atender.
Doesn't have
¿Qué
to
es
be
lo que
attended to?
origina el que la gente se ve obligada
What
a abandonar sus
pushes the
pueblos,
people to
a
be
sus
obligated
familias,
to abandon
para
their
buscarse
families,
la vida como pueda?
their towns, to find
En
new
otras
ways of
partes.
life in other places?
Y eso no son temas.
And those are not
Por lo del
subjects?
Perú, vuelvo a insistir,
Or the situation with Peru? I insist again.
silencio.
Great big silence.
Nadie habla.
Nobody's talking about that.
Un golpe de Estado
A coup,
técnico
technical coup,
con el apoyo,
with the backing of,
o cuando menos
or at least
con la
with,
aprobación del gobierno de Estados Unidos.
approval of the U.S. government,
Embajador en Perú,
because their
fue
ambassador
la
in
primera
Peru
en declarar
was the first to declare
en contra del presidente
against
electo
president,
democráticamente.
democratically
Pero hoy
elected
está en la cárcel.
president that is now in jail.
Entonces ya basta
And so that's
de
enough
hipocresías.
about hypocrisies.
Vamos a cambiar el mundo.
Let's
Vamos a
change the
transformar
world. Let's transform
la vida pública. Vamos
public
a
life.
purificar
Let's purify
la vida pública en los países.
public
Y vamos a
life in the
establecer,
countries, and let's establish,
así como en México, el
as we do in
humanismo,
Mexico, humanism,
y en el mundo la
and in the
fraternidad
world,
universal.
universal fraternity.
Y
And
muchísimo respeto al presidente
I do
Peña,
have a lot of respect for
porque lo considero sincero.
President
Pero
Peru
los aparatos
because I consider him
continúan
sincere,
igual.
but the apparatus
Cuando dominaban
are the
toda
same.
América
When they
Latina
dominated all Latin America,
y ponían y quitaban gobernantes
they would
a su antojo,
put and take away governments.
es lo mismo.
It's the same thing.
Y siguen hablando de libertad.
And they keep
Y
talking
siguen
about
hablando de
liberties
democracia.
and democracies.
Pues que quede claro.
So
en
let's
relación a
leave it
nosotros.
clear with relation to us.
Hay más libertad en México.
There's
y
more
más
liberty in
democracia
Mexico
que
than
en Estados Unidos.
in the U.S. With all due respect
Así
to
de
Biden.
claro. Y si
That's how clear.
quieren que
And if they want
debatamos sobre este
To
asunto,
debate about this,
lo hacemos.
we can do it.
Y yo tengo las pruebas
I have proof
para demostrar que hay más
Evidence.
libertad
to show
Okay, my
that there's
democracy.
more liberty and more democracy here.
en nuestro país. Y eso sí lo tenemos que defender porque
And that we
No
have to
somos
defend
colonia.
because we're not a colony.
no somos un protectorado.
We're not protecting
Somos un país
others.
libre,
We're a
independiente,
free,
soberano.
independent, sovereign country.
Y nosotros respetamos y por eso
And we respect
exigimos
others,
que
and
nos
that's why
respeten.
we
No es de que allá en el
demand
Departamento
that
de
we get
Estado,
respected. It's not that in
de
the
repente
Department of State
escucharon
suddenly
lo
that they
que mandó a
hear
decir Claudio
what
X. González
Claudio
o
X.
Krause
González sent them or Krause sent them
o Castañeda,
or Castañeda,
¿no? Y a ver, un comunicado
and
a favor
information.
de la marcha.
in favor
Está
to the
en
march.
riesgo la democracia
Democracy is
en
at
México
risk in
por una
Mexico
ley secundaria.
because a secondary law.
Dan pena ajena.
They are shameless,
Es ridículo.
ridiculous.
Ojalá
Hopefully that
leyeran lo que
they
contiene la ley
receive
electoral.
what electoral laws contain.
Ojalá.
Hopefully.
¿Qué es lo que contiene la ley electoral? En
What does
esencia,
the electoral law
de
have?
que no
In essence,
haya
is that
funcionarios públicos
there are no public
que ganen el doble de lo que gana el presidente de
politicians that
México.
earn the double as the president of Mexico.
Eso es.
Double the amount. That's all.
¿A quién se le quitan derechos
Who are the rights being taken away from?
para participar?
To participate.
Es una ley para aminorar
It's a law to minimize
la participación
the participation,
tendenciosa
tendential
de
participation,
un
tendency
aparato que siempre ha estado
of an
controlado
apparatus that it has always been controlled
por la oligarquía,
by the
un
oligarchy,
aparato antidemocrático
an
que han
anti-democratic
utilizado
apparatus that have been
para llevar a
used
cabo fraudes electorales en
to
México. Entonces, en
have
Estados Unidos no
frauds.
saben
So in the U.S., they don't
de
know
los fraudes electorales en México.
about the frauds in Mexico.
No saben.
They don't know about them.
No saben quiénes son.
They don't know who
No
does
saben
those.
que la Bastida
They don't know that La Bastida, for example,
recibió dinero
received
de
money
Pemex
from Pemex
para su campaña.
for his campaign.
No saben
They don't
que
know that
Fox
Fox
apoyó el fraude electoral del 2006.
backed the
No lo saben.
electoral fraud in 2006. They don't know that?
No saben que Calderón
And they don't know that Calderon
se impuso mediante el fraude,
imposed himself through that fraud, and to legitimize himself, he declared the war against narcos,
utilizando a García Luna
using Garcia Luna
y causando un
and
tremendo
causing
daño
this
al país,
great harm to the country,
inclusive a Estados Unidos,
including the U.S.,
porque por esa
because through that
decisión
decision
de imponer a Calderón
of imposing Calderón,
se intensificó el narcotráfico
narco-trafficking intensified,
y se inundó de drogas
and
a
it was
Estados Unidos.
drowning
¿No
in
lo saben
drugs
ellos?
to the U.S. They don't know that?
Son muy buenos
They're really
para ver
good to see
la paja en el ojo ajeno y
see
no
what's
la
happening
viga
in other
en el
places
propio.
and not what's happening in
Ya
their
me
own
voy.
country.
Dios, vamos a desayunar.
All right, I'm leaving now. I'm going to go have some breakfast. He got mad today. Se enojó el presidente. Muy interesante lo que se dijo el día de hoy, amigas y amigos. Pues espero les haya gustado. Ya estamos también nosotros muy cansados. Gracias, Jennifer, de veras. Lulu, gracias por estar con nosotros. AMLONet, gracias por estar con nosotros nuevamente también. Ana, gracias. Buenas noches. Carmen, como siempre. Muchas gracias, Ana María. Gracias a todas y a todos ustedes por estar con nosotros. Thank you for being here. We'll see you tomorrow. Nos vemos mañana con más información de este presidente que está haciendo un cambio, que está haciendo algo nuevo para no solo el país de México, sino para todo el continente americano. Y esperemos que tarde que temprano todo el mundo escuche los cambios que están pasando aquí, positivos. Claro, nos va a tomar muchos años, mucho tiempo, cambiar la ideología de 80 años de represión y más de 500 años de represión y robo, saqueo al país que tenemos que lidiar. Cuídense mucho. Gracias, Carmen Torres. Cuídense mucho. Nos vemos mañana con más transmisiones. No olviden, estamos traduciendo el juicio de Alex Murdoch, que está por terminarse, yo creo que mañana o el jueves. Cuídense mucho, mi gente hermosa. Gracias por estar conmigo. See you tomorrow. Hasta mañana.